Year 2021, Seoul. A group of students is trying to gang up on a geeky kid and was surprised when the bully was intercepted by a right roundhouse kick and got knocked down. One guy sneaked behind the kid and got hit by a bat in the back of the head by surprise. As the guys kicked him while he was down, lights that looks like snow started to appear and shined brightly, making the bullies stop for a while. Suddenly, a homeless-looking guy stepped in and surprised that nothing has changed in the school and tried to mediate in the fight. Then the bullies turned on him and attacked him but missed. The homeless guy suddenly started to chant, and as he snapped his fingers he got confused because nothing is happening, so instead, he flicked the head of the bully and sent him flying back, making everyone shocked and awe. In a flash, the rest of the bullies were knocked out with only his fingers. The kid, while still in shock, approached the homeless-looking guy and said his thanks. The guy questioned him about the current date, and the kid answered it is the year 2021. And the homeless guy was surprised because, as he recalled, it should be around 2036 now since he was summoned 2016, and it's been 20 years since then. The guy then decides to leave, but still tries to use a spell, but to no avail. He then returned to the kid and asked money, and further explained that he came from another world and just got back to Earth by molecular transportation. It also feels like there is something wrong with the process because he can't cast his teleport back to his home. In the end, the kid lent him money after hearing his crazy story, in which he believes is impossible. While walking, he tried to recall the age of his family members and then noticed a military guarding the subway entrance. Curious, he then asked the passing people for the reason, but was laughed at because he did not know that they were guarding it because it was actually a dungeon entrance. He then decided to continue walking and notices another subway station with no guards. He then visited the area and saw that this station is locked. As he continued to explore, he got a notification that says he has entered a dungeon at Gwacheon Station's first entrance, but after a few seconds another notification says that this dungeon is already being conquered. This made him wonder what happened to the Earth after 5 years, since there are now monsters in the subway station. He tried to go back with magic, but was informed that he needs a return stone in order to leave. His instincts tell him that there is a monster in the area and got jumped on by a red dog-looking monster. He managed to dodge and immediately tried to use the magic restrain. The monster jumped towards him, but his magic is still not working, so he jumped back to avoid the attack. After getting a good look at the monster, he recognized it as a drabbit and got confused as to why a monster from another area is there. Out of options, he looked around and manages to find a crowbar and immediately dived to get it, and since he recognized the monster, it gave him the confidence to kill it easily even without his magic. After a while, a pack of drabbits came out, and still he easily defeated them all and made him level up. His current status box shows up. He noticed that he returned to level 1, but got a lot of stat points, items and skills in exchange. He further thinks about his plan to progress but prioritize his stats first and uses all 99 points. His goal now is to find a return stone, and he needs 5 more achievement points in order to buy the search skill from the shop. On his search, he leveled up and managed to buy the needed skills from the shop. He continued to walk and found that the only way forward is to go further down, where it is infested with more monsters. Since it is dangerous, he decided to buy the skeleton soldier summon from the shop. After further preparation, he used his summoning skill and raised his group of skeletons and managed to wipe the area and find a return stone. At the same station, the guard was surprised when he finds the locks open and immediately tried to call for help, but was surprised when he saw Woojin coming out of the dungeon and asked him if he is an awakened. Meanwhile, a man is shown with a bag full of crystals, thinking how they are being used by their guild and plans to keep the crystals to himself. Out of nowhere, he was called out by the Hwarang Guild main team captain Lee Yini and killed him for stealing. She then received a message from the guild alerting her that there is someone at a nearby dungeon and asked here to check the scene. Woojin thinks that this is no longer the world he knows of because of the monsters and dungeons. He hopes that his family is okay. After arriving to the location of his home, he was surprised to see that a huge building by the Hammer Guild is now standing there. After eating, he thought of sleeping at a subway station, but he suddenly met the student named Jimin, which is the kid he helped earlier, and asked a favor to sleep in his house. The following day, Woojin visited his school and asked his old teacher help to check on some old students' record. He then visited Jimin in his room and found out that he is being bullied again, so he beat them all up on the rooftop. From there, he saw his mother walking towards the school and talked to her. According to her mother, 5 years ago after he went missing, all subway stations across the world simultaneously became dungeons, and it was called Dungeon Shock. His father passed away on his way home from work after getting caught up in the Dungeon Shock. So, she had to raise her sister Suah alone. It became really hard for them. His sister Suah became sick, and the situation declined rapidly, and it was like every day is a torture. His mother left the home to pick up his sister, and he looked around, and in this small space, he immediately felt the struggle that they are experiencing every day. His mother returned and he finally met his sister, and they all had a great time together. While he is lying, he recalls the world Alphen and as to why it was summoned. It was a world like a game. To survive on the Alphen planet against the cruel monsters, you need to learn several methods, and he fought desperately like no one else. As a result, he became a max-level necromancer. After the almost endless journey, he met the dimensional administrator and returned to Earth without any regrets. All of it was to return to Earth and meet his family again. He was hopeful to find ordinary happiness that he originally had, however, the Earth is no longer the same. And because of this change, he lost his father, and his family is on the verge of bankruptcy. With all that in mind, he became more determined to earn money for the sake of his family. The next day, he bought a phone and remembered being asked if he was an awakened. He saw that as an opportunity to earn money if he really becomes an awakened. Woojin tried to ask help from Jimin, but was tricked when he was given a different contact number, so he decided to just go to Jimin's home. He then asked Jimin more information about him being an awakened, and they earn a lot of money. Jimin told him that he needs to register as an awakened first, and told him various ways to earn money as an awakened, and also the need to join the guild, since it is dangerous to go in alone, but Woojin thinks of doing it himself, since he needs to earn fast money. Jimin was surprised to see that Woojin bought a phone, and slightly mocks it because it is an old model, and it is slow. Woojin then realized that he was tricked by the seller. Jimin taught him to download an app to access the dungeon forum. This will help him know more about the dungeon, and even reserve them. As he checks the forum, he noticed that there is an entrance fee. Jimin said that even at the lowest dungeon, you will still have to pay a fee of about 100,000 won. Woojin, for someone who has no money, immediately asked Jimin for money without any hesitation. The following day and without any time wasted, Woojin went to the Awakened General Affairs Bureau to take the Awakened exam. In the testing area, he immediately impressed everyone with his dark aura and resurrected a skeleton from the corpse of a dead rabbit, and it further amazed all the examiner. It was actually their first time seeing a necromancer. They want to quickly assess the capability of his summon and created a goblin hologram. After the exam, he was only ranged F grade due to the low combat power of his summons. It did not faze him because his main goal is to be able to enter dungeons. Woojin, currently checking on the dungeon forum, was invited by the nearby party after they noticed that he is alone. He immediately declined and said that he is planning to enter the dungeon all by himself. One of the party members informed him that it is a waste of entrance fee since there is a time limit in the dungeon, and insisted to have him join and take it as a learning experience. Furthermore, you will have to pay the fee for 8 people if you plan to enter the dungeon alone. That's why it is more cost efficient if you go in with a party. While waiting for their turn, they saw another party coming out speaking about a monster not on the list appearing in the dungeon. As their team entered, they started to get along and know each other's capabilities, and managed to finish the first wave of monsters with good amounts of loots. Moving forward, they encountered the Hobgoblin. This is the monster that is not listed on the dungeon's list. Woojin warned their leader to proceed with caution, but the leader already had a plan on how to tackle the monster. They first set a barrier to block the magic of the monster, and then started their own attack. Woojin is observing the battle from the back, and recalled that hobgoblins are highly intellectual compared to normal goblins. What makes it dangerous is not its physical or magic, but its high ability to command. A goblin squad that has a commander can't be considered as a normal 1-star monster anymore. After seeing the tactical command of the goblin squad, their team leader immediately commands them to retreat, but the goblin squad already blocked their exit. While they are in panic, the hobgoblin took the chance to cast a lightning strike and hits one of their members. Woojin then launched a surprise attack and targeted the leader, knowing that it is what makes them dangerous. He used his skeletons to block the minions and easily defeated the leader with one strike in the head. This kill alone gave him 1 full level in an instant. He then saw one of his party member dying on the ground and made an agreement to save him if he helped Woojin collect all the bloodstones in the dungeon. As they head to the exit, Woojin detected a negative intent and saw that it was from the other members of the team. They managed to deceive and attack them so that they can take all the bloodstones. Woojin managed to block the attack and mocked the attacker for being too greedy. He then summoned his skeletons from the nearby goblin corpse to punish them. He killed their leader because for him, there is no hope for people who backstab others. Woojin and Sungu then head to the exit and were approached by the bureau agent and asked where are the other members. Woojin just said they were killed in battle. The agent further questioned as to how were they able to get all the bloodstones. Woojin just answered that it is what they came for. Before they were allowed to leave, they were reminded that they might get contacted by the bureau for incident investigation. He left the bloodstones to Sungu to take care of it and left. Woojin immediately went to the cell phone store. He immediately approached a person that scammed him for selling an old phone to him and beat him up because again, he does not like people who backstab or lie to him. In the end, the owner of the shop gave him the latest phone they have. Woojin leaves the store but was stopped by a group of people that's interested in him. Outside, Woojin was interrupted by one of the members of the Hwarang Guild's main team, Captain Lee Yan-e. He instantly noticed that this person is strong. Their purpose was to catch the person that intruded their dungeon. They mocked Woojin and started to attack him. Yi managed to knock him down and warned him to not get involved with their guild again. Later that day, he shared his experience to Jimin and discovered that Yi was actually part of the top 10 A rank awakened in our country. The Hwoarang Guild, along with KH and Hammer, is one of the top 3 guilds that represent the country with tons of connections. Jimin got curious as to why they target Woojin and laughed at him when he said that he will take the whole guild down when he regains his full strength. He realized his disadvantages and paid his debt to Jimin and more. Sungu meets up with Woojin to discuss about the payment for saving him, but suddenly Sungu apologized that he can't pay it yet and needed time to get it. Sungu thought that he owed 4 billion won, but Woojin only meant 4 million. Woojin did not correct him and took advantage of the misunderstanding. Next day, Woojin was picked up by Sungu, and it turned out that they had an agreement that Sungu will have to work for Woojin as an all-around employee for a year in order to pay off his debt. This one shows that Woojin still has a good heart and plans to help Sungu during his service. Woojin requested a tier 3 dungeon that has the biggest number of summoned monsters. This is the exit number 3 of Mibong Station where the herd of Rakwi appear. Upon arriving to the location, it still surprised them to see this much monsters, so Woojin decided to allocate all his stat points saved to domination. This increased the number of skeleton monsters he can summon to 19. It posed no trouble for Woojin and his skeletons to beat the monsters in the area. Sungu was surprised because he cleared the dungeon for only 15 minutes, where it usually takes 2 hours for the others to clear it. At this point, Woojin is now level 7 and gained a lot of achievement points. He checked all the newly unlocked level 7 skills and got disappointed because to him, they are all useless. Among the list, he noticed that he can acquire a skeleton magician once he reaches level 10, so he decided to buy it in advance. They tracked their first clear time, and it is enough for them to clear it 7 more times since they have the dungeon for 4 hours. After all the work, they sold their bloodstones, and Sungu was shocked to see that he earned this much money in one day, and it is even more than his 2 months' work in the past. Sungu thinks it was a great decision to be his manager. Meanwhile, in the Hammer Guild, one of the officials got a report that there is an ongoing abnormality in the clear time of the people that reserved the dungeon for 4 hours. The clear time keeps on getting faster and faster every time they enter it. The official checked on their background and got excited because a promising awakened has appeared after a long time. The Hwoarang Guild also observes Woojin and figured that he might have hidden his rank in the test, or he's just growing at a very fast rate. Such growth speed was similar to the Korea's rank 1 Kim Kang-chul. Yi believed that it is not right to compare Woojin to Kang-chul, but to Master Lee Sang-o, it won't hurt to check what kind of person he is. Inside the dungeon, Woojin thought of giving the rest of the proceeds to Sunwoo, since he already has enough funds to support his family. He then decided to increase the pace, causing him to level up to level 10. He finds it strange because he's already a necromancer class, so why would it ask for another advancement? Suddenly, the notification starts analyzing him and chose a class for him, and he ended up getting the warrior class, and it turns out that he is a dual class. Along with the class change is a warrior class weapon, and it is a steel pipe. It is a growth type weapon, and Woojin is excited how it will evolve in the future. Also, he got the necromancer's privilege. It is a sealed demon stone. A necromancer automatically receives it whenever they reach a certain level. There are total of 7 sealed stones that contains the strongest summons. He opened the stone, and he got surprised to see that it is a tiny female demon named Bibi. Woojin then asked what happened, and she said that after he left all of his summons were trapped inside the room of seal. Bibi stopped and recognized the smell of Tronit, a demon that came from an unknown dimension and responsible for the destruction of 90% of Alphen. He realized that it is possible that Ronit is looking to invade Earth as well. As they come out, they were approached by the Hammer Guild official and tried to recruit them to their guild, but Woojin instantly rejected it. Woojin finally managed to buy a new house for his mother and sister, but her mother is worried because being an awakened is dangerous and she don't want to lose him too like his father. Later that day, Woojin called out Bibi in a cat form. She said she can't get to his original form outside the dungeon. Also, the leader of Hwoarang Guild personally visited him outside his home and also apologized about the incident with Yi. He tried to invite Woojin to the guild and also declined it, but the leader insisted that it is for the sake of the world. The following day, the Hammer Guild was surprised to see that Woojin and Sungu is now planning to take on a 4-star dungeon. They wonder what made them this confident to take on a dungeon with this difficulty. Outside the dungeon, they are being prohibited to enter the dungeon because of the risk of entering with only 2 people, so they ended up looking for a 3-star dungeon instead, but was intervened by the team leader of Hammer Guild and offered their own 4-star dungeon. They feel like they can soften him up by being kind to him. Inside the dungeon, Woojin is surprised as to why monsters are pretty weak inside a 4-star dungeon. As they search further, they discovered a portal and they got transported to a forest naked. Woojin crafted some clothes for them from one of his conventional skills. He also prepared for the possible strong monsters in the dungeon and unlocked a few warrior class skills. Amazingly, they manage to survive in the dungeon, even if the portal only accepts items from the other dimension to enter it. As they got stuck in the swamp, they managed to scare the monkeys away by a barrage of fireballs from his skeleton mages. Outside the dungeon, the Hammer Guild is growing worried because it's already been 4 hours since they enter and doubt that they can clear it with limited wildlife knowledge, and the return stone is guarded by the strongest monster in the dungeon. It is then shown that the reason why it became easy for them to survive is because the area is exactly the same as where he lived for 20 years. Inside the forest they have finally found the return stone, but was halted when they saw the group of orcs guarding it. Wujin recognized them as one of the races that lives in Alphen's society. He then talked to them using their language and found out that Pronet took their homes and created a contract with them in which they will make Earth their new home. Enraged, the orcs started to attack. Outside the dungeon, the Hammer Guild's officials are still waiting and hoping to see them come back alive after 6 hours and 20 minutes. This means that a day has passed on the dungeon already. Then, the countdown for the dungeon disappeared. At first, they were disappointed that no one is coming out, but eventually they came out with lots of loots with them. Back at the Hammer Guild's office, the team leader is suggesting that they should take Wujin as a vice president and was questioned if it is really worth it for them. Park Jin-woo arrived and discussed about some issues in America, wherein they found a woman that came out of the dungeon and tries to cure her to be able to talk to them, but it seems like this woman knows Kang Wujin. Later that evening, Wujin, Sungu and the sister of Jimin Juin is shown drinking. Wujin also mentioned that Juin used to be the most popular girl in school. As time passed, Juin fell asleep and her hat fell, showing her scar in the forehead, but Wujin says she's still pretty. Next morning, Juin is shown waking up in her brother's house after being brought by Wujin and remembered what happened that night. A flashback is shown where Wujin is having a dream of his past with Juin, but got suddenly woken up by Bibi in a cat form. Wujin meets up with Sungu, who's still looking for a tier 4 dungeon, and since they are having a hard time, Wujin decided to call Hammer Guild's team leader for help. After a few minutes, the list of 4-star dungeons was presented to them. While outside, Sungu noticed a dungeon reset and that it is his first time seeing it, but the team leader is worried and asked his team to call the guild. Since it was Wujin's first time as well, the 3 dungeon categories were explained to him. First is mine, second is reset and finally break. So far, all the dungeon that they have cleared are just mine dungeons, since they have been cleared in the past already. A dungeon gets reset after a few months, and that means it becomes an entire new dungeon that no one has information of yet. Wujin realized that it is currently a free dungeon and wants to clear it first. After each reset, the dungeon is checked for its energy in order to identify its difficulty, and it turns out that the new dungeon is a 5-star dungeon, and Wujin is not allowed to enter. The Jujak team from Hwoarang Guild arrived, and as Wujin noticed Yi, he instantly made up a plan. He started by greeting them, and slowly he irritated Yi, making her look like he got pushed, and Wujin falls inside the dungeon. The new dungeon is a desert this time, and he instantly got a surprised attack from a sandworm. Wujin is confident that there are not much of a difference, monsters will be monsters. When suddenly he got trapped by a group of sandworms and still managed to kill them all because he managed to level up his warrior skills and allowed him to shapeshift his steel pipe into a spear-like weapon after killing the orcs from the previous dungeon. From a distance, a group of desert ballworm comes rolling down towards him, and it is highly explosive. Wujin used his bone wall skill in order to save himself and took a potion to remove the poison. Outside the dungeon, everyone is waiting for Wujin to come out, and Sungu is confident that he will come back alive. If Wujin managed to clear it alone, he will become the 11th Great Awakened of Korea. Inside the dungeon, Wujin is leveling up faster and close to getting a new summon once he reaches level 30. He then found the abandoned city of Lucretia and almost got hit by a Naga who's guarding the place. He recognized that this place is Arya, the goddess of Foresight Temple. He also asked them as to why they are on Earth and if Tronet has something to do with it. They only worked with Tronet to catch the blue-eyed priestess who is currently on Earth. They started the fight but got instantly cornered when the Nagas came out of stealth. He figured that they are stronger than his skeleton soldiers and decided to level his soldiers up to level 20, and it greatly strengthens them and changed their form. The battle progresses and shows the advantage of the enemies not only in numbers but in levels as well. He assessed the situation that even BB and his improved skeletons can't help him. Outside, the news is covering the fall of Wujin in the dungeon and even considered it as a miracle to be surviving a 5-star dungeon alone. Back to the dungeon, Wujin is shown kneeling in front of the Naga leader and surprised him with a new demon sealing stone after leveling up, and it turns out that it was his previous servant, Golem. It has a huge size since it adapted the target area of the summon. With just the Golem alone, it managed to wipe all the soldiers with ease, and the last one left is the leader. Wujin mocked him and it retaliated, but he then used his shapeshift skill into a hammer and prepares to use a warrior skill Whirlwind. The Naga leader charges in with his fiery spear, but Wujin is not phased and activated Whirlwind. It instantly defeated the Naga leader. He never thought that there will be someone this strong on Earth. It tried to do a sneak attack but was blown to pieces by his hammer. The people outside went crazy when they saw Woojin come out of the dungeon. He then saw Yi and teased her again. With Kang Woojin clearing the dungeon, he became Korea's 11th A rank awakened. News reporters are trying their best to get an interview with him. Even Hammer Guild's president and Hwoarang's leader can't believe on what happened. Meanwhile, Woojin and Sungu is shown staying in Jimin's place to shake off the reporters from following them. Then his mother called telling him that he received a draft letter. Woojin got mad and planned to kill Kim Jong-jun just to avoid going to the military. Jimin came back and informed them that awakened are not enlisted as normal soldiers, and if you really don't want to go to the military, you can just join a guild and do quest. The Hammer Guild got excited when they hear that Woojin is looking to set up a meeting with them. They thought that he will join their guild, but during the meeting, team leader Jung and Heeman was invited by Woojin to create a guild with him. He offered them both an additional 1 million on top of their current salary just to join him, and even guarantees that they will grow even bigger than the Hammer Guild. Heeman already made up his mind and will join Woojin's guild because having a person who soloed a 5-star dungeon will surely grow up fast. They also considered that they can no longer rise up with Hammer Guild. This made him decide to join Woojin's guild as well. They went back to the guild to submit their resignation, but was surprised by a party stating that Jung is now the vice president and find it awkward to file their resignation now. But after admitting that he failed to recruit Woojin, the president got mad and Jung used it as a chance to resign. The two are now excited to start a new career with Woojin, and their guild was named Artel. Team leader Jung is still getting used to his new boss and felt a bit uneasy because they are too relaxed. Team leader just further explained how to make use of the dungeon efficiently and also the need of 5 members to start a guild. Woojin looked at his phone and realized that he does not know a lot of people, so he decided to contact the phone scammer. The guy was dumbfounded to know that he was invited to come and join the guild. 2 days ago, the office was improved, and Seunghoon the phone scammer can't believe that the person who almost beat him to death is famous now and thought that it would be better to work here. They asked him on how is he related to Woojin, but was just thinking that he needs to come quick or he will get beaten again. Woojin returns with Sungu exhausted from the 5-star dungeon raid and called in a meeting and asked them on what position do they want to get, even if the guild is still small. Everyone was shocked because they can't decide on it yet. So, to get a better understanding, Woojin asked team leader Jung about the positions. There are 2 categories, one for awakened and one for normal employees. He further explains that what matters most to awakeners are the contracts and payment for each raid. Woojin appointed Sungu as the director, but it was actually a loot collection director. Woojin further revealed his reason for making the guild, and that is to avoid going to the military. Team leader Jung was shocked and started to regret his decision. Juin just found out that Woojin is a famous person now, but was interrupted when her roommates insult her about her scar in the forehead. While clearing the 5-star dungeon, they noticed that the quality of rare drops decreases the more it gets cleared. As they come out of their dungeon, they got swarmed by the media by Seunghoon managed to scare them. Back at their guild, Jimin visited them and told Woojin what his sister is going through. So, Woojin decided to go and meet up with Juin. Woojin came to pick up Juin for a date, but was annoyed because she is too worried about what others will think of her without the hat. So, he decided to buy a mask for the two of them and head on to the movie theater. The two continued with their date and had a great time together. Earlier when Jimin visited, he shared their past to Woojin and asked him help his sister from the trauma she had in the past during the dungeon break. Woojin casted a bone wall to isolate themselves, and inside, he presented Juin a healing potion that will cure her scar. The following day in their office, team leader Jung informed Woojin that he will only be exempted from military service if fulfilled 10 mobilization requests from them. He was then immediately mobilized to take care of the dungeon break in Daegu, Jukjeon Station's third exit. The R is almost like a ghost town because the residents were already evacuated. Dungeon breaks happen when it is not cleared within 30 days, and the monsters will overflow to the streets. In the event that they can't stop it, the military will be forced to take action, and Daegu will be destroyed. He meets the one in charge named Choi Hee-sol, and she mentioned that the dungeon break will happen tomorrow. Woojin thought of raiding it, but was told that return items was already used 3 times in this dungeon, meaning you can no longer use it again. First attempt was with Hwoarang Guild, second was with both Hwoarang and Hammer Guild, and lastly it was attempted by all the awakened all over the world, but all have failed. They headed to the waiting room with the other awakened and met Yi again. Then a flashback shows where Hwoarang's leader is giving a mission to Yi. They started a heated conversation, but eventually got dispersed by Choi. Woojin thought of preparing, so he asked for information on the dungeon. The reason why it was considered as the most powerful dungeon is because it was rated as 6-star dungeon and Woojin is feeling the energy of it at the entrance, but was noticed by Yi. Woojin told Yi that he is planning to clear it. Yi warned him of its difficulty because all the best awakened failed to clear it 3 times already. Woojin still proceeds inside, and it made Yeonhee furious because she was ignored and mocked. In the end, Yeonhee was forced to enter the dungeon with Woojin. This time, this dungeon shows multiple traces of a big fight, and Yeonhee finally realized how Woojin is confident after seeing his summons. Yeonhee is still in doubt of his capability when suddenly a level 60 ogre attacks them. He then responded by summoning his golem and ordered it to charge towards the ogre. He followed the momentum of his golem and jumped over it towards the falling ogre and summoned his hammer to smash and kill it in one strike. This made him level up to level 40. It also unlocked special abilities. Bibi and Rocky were happy to see the progress of their master. As they look around, Woojin was surprised to see the sacred place in Legends, the Tarts Plateau, also known by the others as the Temple of the Giants. This made Woojin wonder if this is the cause of the multiple failures in this dungeon. So, he proceeds in unlocking his skill and got the level 1 Phantom Armor and level 1 Phantom Spear. He also got higher tier skill from Soul Extract. He proceeds in increasing Phantom Armor to level 10 and gathered the Wandering Spirits in the area to 100. In his warrior class, he also unlocked Shapeshift to Greatsword and the skill Sword Split to complement the weapon. And finally, a new sealed stone that everyone is familiar. He summoned the Phantom Horse Xingxing, in which Bibi and Rock was happy to see. All of them charges towards the tower and Yeonhee saw them. It is then revealed that the reason why they don't clear it is because it is more profitable for them to let a dungeon break, since there will be a need to redevelop the area after clearing the break. It also hurts Yeonhee's pride to see that it will be cleared by one person where everyone else failed. So, she decided to stop Woojin from clearing the dungeon no matter what. As they land on the tower, they encountered a group of level 65 giant golems. Woojin figured that golems have no souls, and he needs to increase his warrior class to beat them. Yeonhee was surprised to see that Woojin is now a warrior class and not a necromancer class. He is almost certain of defeating the golem, but looking at the 3 guards at the return stone creeps him out. After clearing the golems, the ones left are the Cyclops. One of the races descended from the ancient giant race. They are not brutal or wild, and they received the wisdom of the giant race. The Cyclops recognized all of them as the giant god of destruction, the witch of hallucination, and the necromancer of slaughter. The Cyclops suddenly used its gigantification and attacked Woojin, but Rock was fast enough to absorb the attack and blocked it. He then asked if they were also connected to Tronet. One of the Cyclops mocked Woojin, making him attack recklessly. They thought they got him, but he went missing for a brief moment. He then landed on top of the largest statue in the area and wonder why it is so huge. He figured that this must be their source of buff in order to be stronger and recover fast. The Cyclops found him and noticing how they reacted, he was right that this statue is their relic. He used the skill Earth Strike and breaks the statue to pieces. One of the Cyclops jumped towards him, but he used his skill Sword Split and cut his head off easily. He then continued to finish off the rest and got a lot of items that increases strength and defense. He even thought that he is losing his identity because his strength is almost at par with his magic stats. As Woojin and Bibi moved towards the location of the return stone, it is nowhere to be found, and suddenly Yeonhee showed up carrying it. The Hwarang Guild is telling his plan to Yeonhee, and it is to make him enter the dungeon break in Jukjian Station. Their reason is to know more about the abilities of Woojin while fighting. They plan on destroying him since they can't get him to their side. Yeonhee started complimenting Woojin for clearing the dungeon alone. Woojin only cares about clearing the dungeon before it breaks, and asked for the return stone to be handed to him, but Yeonhee suddenly leaped forward and attacked. She also added that she also has her own reasons for killing him. The members of the Ardal Guild grew worried because they can't get any information on what is happening in the 6-star dungeon. The fight goes on between the two, but Yeonhee is gaining a bit of an advantage due to her fast skills. She managed to hit Woojin, dropping his armor by 2 points. She also has knowledge on how to deal with Golem and easily killed it with 1 strike. Yeonhee's experience is giving her the edge on this battle. She's just getting quicker and quicker as the fight goes on. With Shadow Godspeed, she got Woojin wounded between his eyes. She smells blood and looks forward to giving the final blow, but it looks like Woojin was 1 step ahead of the match all along. As Yeonhee thrusts forward, her sword was trapped by one of Woojin's skeletons. That's the only time she recognized that he was just pretending to be cornered in order to trap her towards his summons. Yeonhee managed to pull her sword out, but there are 2 more skeletons that stabbed her from the back. While she was disabled, Woojin finishes her off with 1 huge slash, making level up to 50. He also gained the skill Resurrection and Corpse Detonation. Woojin heads out and immediately his members and Juan approached and checked up on him. Hwarang's leader Sango approached asking where Yeonhee is. Woojin informed him that she is already dead and was mismatched, and said that Immortal killed her. Hwarang's leader was devastated about the news and looks for revenge towards Woojin. He noticed the news about a professor named James Toppler sharing his hypothesis regarding dungeons that they are roads for monsters to enter Earth. He also mentioned that return stones may have been acting as a stabilizer and will lose its effect after 30 days, resulting the break. 5 and 6-star dungeons appear more frequent now, and it is only a matter of time before we see a 7-star dungeon. Woojin also thought that the monsters might have been using the bloodstones as bait to increase their mana on Earth. Heeman called letting Woojin know that a press conference will be held, and he openly agreed and attended. At the venue, Hwoarang leader Sangho looks like he is up to no good, and Woojin sensed it. Lee Chang'o was asked if the reckless dungeon raid was planned by both Ardal and Hwoarang. He stated that there are no such order, and that it was Yianni's sole decision to follow Kang Woojin inside. The attention was then shifted to Woojin as he was asked how the raid went wrong. He was also asked if there was a conflict between them. Negative comments start pouring, and Woojin can no longer contain himself and stood up. He then turned to Lee Chang'o and kicked him in the face, dropping him down to the floor. Everyone was shocked, and Woojin told him how dare he tried to pull his dirty tricks on him. He thought that since they are on live broadcast, Woojin will not hurt him, but he does not care at all, because this is just a small portion of people compared to Alphen. He even started by asking Lee Chang'o if he wants to get beaten on a live broadcast, before starting to slap him in the face until it is all swollen. Watching from his room, Singyoon got chills just by remembering how he got beat up the same way. He then looked at the news, and it is already the trending story, and noticed the appearance of a new saintess that's currently on the news. An elf with blue eyes and white hair that's able to heal almost any illness or disability. She said that she is just a messenger of the goddess. It is revealed that her name is Arya's saintess, Murti. She entered Earth with no knowledge of any language on Earth, but managed to master it within a few days of study. She can also reveal Arya's foresight through divine revelation. This is by predicting the place and time where a new dungeon would occur. In order to get this assistance from Murti, they need to establish the paladin squad to serve the goddess Arya. The Titan Guild is trying their best to fulfill the need of the goddess in order to take advantage of her great ability. Meanwhile, back at the press conference, Woojin finally stopped beating Lee Sangho after he lost his consciousness. He then turned to the press and answered how Lee Yianni died. He said, "She tried to kill me and she failed." He threatens everyone that no matter who you are, if you mess with me, I will not leave you be. Then left the conference. Woojin have confirmed that the Hwoarang Guild is responsible for the attack on him and still can't believe that he killed Lee Yianni. With all that happened, Minchin became concerned on how affect the public opinion, but Woojin is aware that it would be hard for backstabbers to work if the issue was brought out in the open, since they can no longer conspire secretly. As they come out of the building, a group of people was waiting to thank him for what he did. They were the people that lives in area around the dungeon that he cleared. He became their hero and finally be able to go back to their homes and leave the shelter. Hwoarang Guild's leader finally woke up shaking in anger. He now plans to kill him to get revenge on the humiliation that he just received. The Titan Guild continued to provide the necessary help to create the paladin squad for goddess Arya. They will be the heroes to save and get Alphen back. They also reported that they finally found the person that the saintess is looking for based on the revelation. She immediately trembled in fear after seeing the photo of the immortal necromancer of slaughter. She can't believe that Kang Woojin would be the messiah of the revelation. Back at the office, Woojin asked Sungu to get the car, and to everyone's surprise, he plans to go to the Hwoarang Guild to settle things nicely. In order to limit the problem, Young Minchin insisted that he will take care of the issue for him and said to let him hire more people like a lawyer and staff. He then worries again about the increasing numbers of bloodstones on Earth and that it would further increase the minions that might be able to enter Earth, including the 72 captains of Tronet. Even with his alliance in Alphen, they barely get equal to Tronet's forces, and currently he only has 4 people to command. Then he got an idea after looking at Sungu. He brought him inside a dungeon to assess his current level and skills. He asked him if he wants to become stronger and if he is willing to undergo rough training to gain more power. They began their training and aims to reach A rank in 1 month. Sungu is shown fighting the skeletons and used his fireball to gain distance, but the skeleton was unaffected by it and got stabbed in the chest. Woojin stepped in to give him some lectures to resolve his heart to get stronger. Imagine dungeons breaking on Earth all at the same time, and he needs to be strong to protect his own family. While resting, Woojin noticed a saintess on the news and found out that it was Murti. He immediately talked to Minchin and asked help to get him tickets going to America. He was then informed that the Titan Guild is holding a consortium for every guild in the world. He also presented Woojin a few expensive books and that it will all be learned by Sungu. This put their funds low, and they are now looking for a 6-star dungeon to clear. However, this is located in Pyongyang, North Korea. The Supreme Leader heard the news of Kang Woojin's visit and got excited to meet him in person. Now in North Korea, Woojin was escorted by Choi Hee-sol. She told him a story that once North Korea tried to challenge the dungeon themselves but failed, so they put up a raid request nationwide to clear their 6-star dungeon. They have made an agreement that if he successfully clears the dungeon, they will be granted a 15 days free access to the dungeon. They've finally arrived at the Palace of the Sun, but the leaders are late. But Woojin is already aware of this political strategy, so this does not affect his composure at all. The leader finally arrived and stretched his arm to shake hands, but Woojin made fun of him before shaking the leader's hand. Kim's subordinates did not like that gesture and asked him to talk in a nicer manner, but Woojin continued to fool around and everyone got stressed out, but Jonggun was actually entertained by what Woojin did and even complimented him for it. After agreeing with the terms, Woojin and Heesol immediately head to the dungeon but was told to leave a photo with him before he goes. Woojin finally entered the dungeon as the supreme leader watches and cheered him from afar. Inside, they recognized that this is Tronit's colony. They spotted a large number of Vesic, Mantis, rushing towards them, so he summoned his golem with his skeletons and skeleton mages to clear the first wave. The next wave of monsters is now with spiders and a rock rhino. In this fight, Woojin suddenly felt sorry for not having his Licht and Death Knights yet, but he is different now, wherein he alone now has a few warrior skills on his own arsenal. 12 days later, dungeon time. They found an area that looks like a hatchery in order to know who owns the colony. Woojin resurrected all the nearby corpses and ordered them to get to the middle, and then he used skill corpse explosion. Among the rubble is the return stone, but it is floating with another item beside it. It is called Fragment of the Dimension. This is the first time seeing this. At the same time, Kim Jong-jun's secret hobby room. Kim is commanding his soldiers to put up the portrait of him and Woojin. This is along with other awakened items collected inside the room. Another soldier also came in informing Kim about Woojin clearing the dungeon and immediately asked them to bring Woojin back for a celebration. Kim's commander looks like he is not happy about what's happening, and he looks like something that will not do good. After clearing the 6-star dungeon, he was welcomed by Choi and congratulated him. After hearing that the negotiation between North and South are doing well, he immediately stepped back inside the dungeon. This time, Woojin is now clearing the dungeon with so much ease because he can now do auto-hunting with his summons. He also became level 60 and unlocked Shapeshift Bow, Rapid Fire and Warrior's Patience for enduring pain. Then the newest summon unlocked, Goblin the Shadow Spirit. It can live off a host using shadows and able to read the emotions of the host. Share information and control the host if it is a corpse that can gain more power if revived. It looked like Woojin does not like this summon because it creeps him out, and at that instant his minions already cleared the dungeon for him, and as he stepped out, Choi Heesol waited for him and begged for him to rest for at least 1 hour just to attend the celebration. He sensed something unusual again, so he commands Goblin to stick to Kim and report everything that will happen when he returns. Kim's commander gave a signal to execute their plan against him. He states that what they'll do is for the sake of their leader who made poor judgment of Woojin. At the entrance of the dungeon, he encountered 2 soldiers bidding him good luck on his way back when suddenly one soldier followed him inside and said he have a message from the president. He then pulls up and detonates the bombs installed to his body in front of Woojin. This is for the intention of killing him while inside the dungeon or have him fatally wounded in order to fail the dungeon. 2 days have already passed, and the negotiators are put on a tight spot because of the delay, and Choi also find it unusual because his prior entry was just 1 day and 17 hours, so he should be out by now. Then another day have passed and the barrier is gone, meaning the dungeon was already cleared. Woojin stepped out wounded all over and immediately called out Jeonjun, and since he is not coming out, he almost killed everyone around him, and suddenly BB came out and put everyone in the area asleep to save them from Woojin's rage. A few awakened soldiers managed to move free from BB's curse, but was instantly defeated by a barrage of phantom spear from Woojin. Through sheer will and mental fortitude, Choi Heesol also got out of BB's curse, and it surprised Woojin to know her strength. However, Choi is willing to get killed just to stop him, but Woojin hit her with a knee to the stomach to knock her out. As he got to the palace, he used Golem to use the strong steel door as a medium and opened it at the same time. As he got in, every other soldier was put to sleep by BB, and he cornered Jeonjun. He then called out for Goblin to report to him, but was surprised to know that Jeonjun was not the mastermind for the suicide bomb attack. Then instead of getting killed, he promised to find the culprit, and Woojin apologized to him, but also thought of taking all his artifact collection. With all her might, Choi Heesol managed to catch up with Woojin and thought that he already killed Jeonjun, but was mistaken and offered her life just to stop him from killing the supreme leader because it will surely start a world war. He then noticed her amazing traits and offered her to leave the military and work under him instead, and he will spare Jeonjun's life. Meanwhile, Jeonjun managed to find the mastermind for the bombing and became more furious because all of his collected artifacts were stolen. After the successful trip to North Korea, he now sets his eyes to America. Back at the guild, everyone has their own thoughts on the actions of their president. Then suddenly Woojin came back and said hello to everyone, and they went outside to go for a drink. Seung-eun then opened the topic about the saintess named Murti. Woojin said that she knows her back in Alphen and told his story about being summoned to Alphen. He struggled in Alphen for 20 years, and when he returned to Earth, only 5 years have passed. They now have a better understanding as to why their president is inhumanely strong. Minchin got curious and asked him about his relationship with the priestess and just said that she is like a friend to him. Then the Saintess is shown praying to the goddess and her memories 5 years back in planet Alphen. The Saintess and her soldiers entering the territory of the immortal Necromancer, the land of the dead that was rumored that no one has returned once you entered. They figured that this is the only option left to survive and avoid being caught by the forces of Tronet. Out of nowhere, a strike from above hits her general and instantly killed him. The attack came from Wujin flying above them while riding his phantom horse. Back to the Ardal Guild, Sungu and Minchin mentioned that Wujin should be more aware of the consequences of his action. He also thought that such image no longer matters if all the dungeon breaks and stronger monsters like the dragon will come out. He further explains that it is the reason why they are currently preparing because the world needs a hero and a powerful leader. People's gaze, negative articles and police summons are all useless. He told his team that he just needs to show them more how ignorant and cruel he can be. Meanwhile, Hwarang Guild's leader Li Sango is still steaming with anger because Kang Wujin is all over the news. He devised a plan to take down Wujin by blackmailing an anonymous person over the phone. They are now on their way to America, and Sungu shows great results on his training because he is now a beer rank. Wujin also reminded Sungu to not go to 4-star dungeons alone because he is excited and for further safety, he gave Sungu a return portal marble that costs 10 billion won each. Then said that he is more useful now and that he has already spent a fortune on him and if he dies, it would be a shame because he will just be one of his skeleton soldiers. Suddenly, Minchin got a call from the defense ministry warning them of a potential terrorist attack towards Wujin. What this means is that they won't be able to take on their flight. Beat Jongdo, one of the 10 air rank awakeners in the country, appeared offering Wujin a ride on his private jet. Wujin gladly accepted the offer and Beat Jongdo gave the hand sign that's been used in Squid Game and says mates. But Wujin is not familiar with it. 20 hours later, both Wujin and Beak had a great time watching dramas on the plane and started calling each other as mates. They were then welcomed by the representative from the Titan Guild to guide them to their hotel. They talked about Beat Jongdo. He said that he is a fun person, and on the other hand, Beat Jongdo also said that he's not an ordinary guy because he was not worried about the terrorism and not intimidated by him. What he liked the most is the fact that they both have the same taste for drama. After a few hours, they arrived at the hotel and after washing up, Wujin noticed a laser pointed at his room, and it is coming from across the building. Then a rocket was fired towards him, but instead of running away, he rushed forward, anticipated the rocket in midair before it hits the hotel. After the explosion, Wujin fell on top of one of the car below, and the explosion consumed all of his saved spirit armor. He took a potion to quickly heal up and found a fighter helicopter, and it made him wonder who would attack him in the middle of the city. He commanded BB to follow the chopper and Goblin to follow the people that set the laser from the building across, so it will only be a matter of time before he finds the culprit. Meanwhile, the Saintess was informed of Wujin's arrival and asked if anyone annoyed him, and was relieved to know that he was attended cordially. She can't stop shivering whenever she thinks about the immortal and got paranoid thinking that he might get annoyed because she did not greet him upon arrival. So, she decided to meet him at his hotel, and the Holy Knight of Arya decides to escort her. In another room, Ying Minchin heard the explosion and immediately checked on what happened to Wujin, but was surprised to see that his room was damaged by the explosion and Wujin was not found. The priestess is now on her way to visit Wujin, but was forced to turn back because of the explosion, and she got more worried because she thinks that the immortal Wujin went on a rampage. Meanwhile, Wujin managed to track the assassin that attacked him down the alleyways of the city. As he gets close, the assassin noticed him and sped up, too fast that even Wujin can't keep up and left him to dust. As he observed the person, it is shown that he is Assad, a level 71 on the 7th circle. Those are the people that are considered as the best in the whole world. Assad provoked Wujin to try and catch him, but Assad lured him down a nearby dungeon where he prepared an ambush. He said that this is going to be his 100th hunt. It is then showed that Assad was born in Afghanistan, but his father sold him to the rebels at a young age. He became a monster because of the never-ending war in front of him. He was made to kill to survive, and one day became an awakened who assassinates. He jumped from the back but was surprised to see that Wujin managed to block him with a steel pipe. It even looked like he predicted his movements. The assassin managed to get out of Wujin's grip and quickly swing his knife but missed. And the following barrage were all blocked with his steel pipe. During the exchange, Al-Assad is still confused on how Wujin managed to dodge his ambush, and it was the first time that a person dodged his first attack. As Wujin blocks all the attack, he asked that don't assassin wield two weapons and a one-on-one fight is better for you, right? Wujin started to increase the strength of his attacks, and that caught Al-Assad off guard and even surprised him of his strength, even if he is a necromancer class. After he gains his balance, Wujin is no longer in front of him. He looked for him but only find traces of blood everywhere with no bodies. But as he turns in the next corner, he found Wujin standing with a bunch of skeleton warriors surrounding him and said that he is about to start the second part of the test. Knowing that he is already trapped, Al-Assad started to use the skill god's fury. This surprised Woojin because he has an explosion skill even if he is an assassin class. After charging up, he quickly dashed towards the herd of skeletons, but is having a bit of a hard time breaking through to reach Woojin at the back, grinning while he observes him fight. Al-Assad did manage to break through the wall of skeleton soldiers and quickly targeted Woojin's head. A very quick and gruesome slash was made, showing a big gush of blood around Woojin's head. Al-Assad looks very happy with the success of his 100th hunt, but it was actually just a figment of his imagination, because what happened was the other way around. He sees Woojin wielding a huge axe finishing the strike as his head gets severed, and at the very end, he still finds it impossible. Woojin sees a lot of potential in him and said that whoever dares to point a knife at him becomes his faithful servant and atone for their sins. Then he proceeds in sealing his soul using the soul sealing stone that can contain a dead opponent's soul and make a master contract if the spirit is level 70 or higher with the use of his skill link. The next day in the function hall of the Titan Guild, Jung Minchin and Baek Jongdu is waiting for Woojin for the start of the consortium. The guild leader started to ask for help from all the best awakened in the planet. He starts to talk about the dungeons first that we know as the dimensional gates. This serves as the bridge between Earth and planet Alphen. He further explained that the monsters from the dungeons were all from Alphen. He suggested that the Earth starts a preemptive attack to Alphen, then Murdy appeared and said humans must cross the bridges in order to kill monsters. She also told everyone that she is from Alphen, but one person from the crowd did not believe her, so she demonstrated her skill by giving everyone in the room a buff that increases their strength to increase her credibility. She also states that she will be the one to open a path to Alphen along with the Paladin squad and encourages everyone to join to save Earth, and if they manage to save both planets, they can continue with the Bloodstones business too. The crowd started to think about what she said, and suddenly a person entered and asked Murdy a question that she came all the way to Earth. Murdy instantly trembles as Woojin approached her at the stage. He even jokes about how things changed, because he is now the one looking up to her. The leader of the Paladin army did not like this way of talking to the Saintess, but suddenly Murdy shows her respect to the king who commands the army of destruction, vanguard of the god of destruction, Trash, and the monarch of Ardal. Then she called him the immortal and greets him while kneeling in front of him. Everyone in the hall had gone crazy about what's happening and confused as to why she is kneeling before him. They then talked about their peace treaty using the Alphen language. Woojin asked as to why is she on Earth and was told that she received a divine revelation from the goddess of Arya to guide the savior that is currently on Earth. She was just following what was revealed to her as a servant of the goddess. Woojin asked the Titan Guild leader to have a little chat, but noticed that there is a live camera crew in the room as well. He asked the crew to turn on the live coverage, then he suddenly threatened the people responsible for the missile attack at the hotel. After the live coverage, they now decided to leave the room with Minchin still wondering about their relationship. Then Baek was shown smiling proud that his younger brother, the Titan Guild Master, Saintess, Minchin and Woojin are now inside the Guildmaster's office. Murdy is still very anxious around Woojin and even asked the guild leader to offer his seat to him. Woojin just told her that everything is fine and there is no need to bother about it. Annoyed, Woojin whispered her to sit in the Alphen language. Still they are curious about their relationship because of the sudden change in the behavior of the Saintess, but still Woojin told him that they are just friends. The Saintess finds it horrifying to be called friend by the immortal, while the Titan Guild Master don't believe Woojin. He then changed the topic by opening his dimensional space and pulls out the head of Al-Assad, the assassin that tried to kill him last night. He asked help if they can track which group is this guy connected. Hearing this news, Murdy can't believe that someone would try to assassinate him and if the Earth has chosen self-destruction. The Saintess suddenly offered to be the one to investigate this, while eagerly convincing the Titan Guild Master because she needs to survive in order to return to Alphen and to not provoke the immortal. This must be due to the trauma she had after meeting him for the first time in Alphen, where he killed her general in front of her. Headshot. Woojin starts to question Murdy's plan to take all the Awakeners on Earth to Alphen. He said that what if all of them die? Then who will defend Earth from the dungeon breakers? Then he asked her if she wants to die. The Saintess quickly kneeled and bowed down, but Woojin stopped her and just told her to explain her plan properly instead. She said that she knows a way to block the dungeon breaks, and Woojin finds it interesting. She mentioned that it has something to do with the fragments of dimension. Meanwhile, in an unknown subway base, a group of people is conducting a test and research, and it was mentioned that Acid must have failed because he hasn't returned yet, and they need to move their base immediately. The lead scientist asked for at least 3 hours so that he can do a final test. BB caught up and is currently in surveillance of the group. She also saw the group carrying the fragment of dimension, and it turns out that is what they are going to test with the use of the energy from the bloodstones. During the test, the initial reading is that it is at the level of a 5-star dungeon, but it rapidly surpassed a 6 stars level, and it kept on rising up to 7 stars. A large beam of light shoots up the sky, and the people inside the lab perished from the explosion. Inside the lab, a menacing-looking man showed up grinning with excitement to be stepping on Earth. Bibi in a cat form bravely confronted him and recognized that she is a succubus. Back at the Titan Guild's office, the Saintess Murdi continued to explain the use of the fragments of dimension. She mentioned that the dimensional grounds are a special place of a higher-ranking dimension that he has already been to. Those are the red portals inside the 4 to 6-star dungeons. These grounds are connected to several dungeons, and dungeon breaks were done in order for the monsters to have more mana from bloodstones on Earth, so they can showcase their true power and move freely. The Saintess said that if the dimensional ground has a lord, it can control the monsters and control any dungeon breaks from happening. The lords are the commanders of Tronet and a lot of low-ranking lords too. They even steal another lord's sacred grounds through battles just to increase their own power. Her plan was to fight the dimensional lords on equal ground to gain authority and to reclaim all the dungeons on Earth and Alphen. This plan instantly gains Woojin's interest and plans on stealing all their grounds to finally meet Tronet, who have never shown his face to him even once in Alphen. To get a dimensional sacred ground, you can either steal or you can claim one if it has no owner in the fragment of dimension. Woojin pulls out the one he recently found, and Murdi told him that if you are stealing a ground, you will only need one fragment, but if you are to proclaim a ground with no owner, you need 3. You must also be chosen by the dungeon if you already have the fragment. Woojin finds it too complicated and demanded the Saintess to just give him 2 fragments to make it easier for him. He also questioned her credibility for only having 1 fragment on her possession, and the Saintess became depressed because she said that she went through a lot of difficulties just to have the fragment she gave to him, and also asked to give it back to her afterwards. Suddenly, Goblin returned, informing him that Bibi was taken by Tronet's underling, Rashmod. He quickly aims to go, and the Saintess is worried that it is too early for a main lord to be appearing already. Woojin remembers the place and wonder why would a dungeon appear in an area with no subway station located there. With the help of the Titan Guild, they manage to get to the location quickly, and while Woojin is walking towards the dungeon, the Titan Guild leader asked if it is okay to let him go without any support. The Saintess told him that with Woojin's people alone, it is more than enough power, and that they would just have to wait until they receive a command from him. As he enters the area, he was welcomed by Rashmod while holding Bibi in his hands. Woojin mocked him by asking if he already got a dementia for acting tough for someone who already died 5 times in his hands. Rashmod still feels that he has the advantage because he knows that Woojin was reset and not at his full power. He then asked Woojin to follow him inside the dungeon to have a proper one-on-one match. He went out to discuss the situation with the Saintess and told her that he is not at full power yet and that he can't summon the Lick and the Death Knights yet. With these conditions, the Saintess got worried, but Woojin calmed her down and that he will finish it in a flash and just wait outside. As he was about to enter the portal, it suddenly breaks, letting loose a lot of monsters in the field. Woojin was not fazed and called in Rock the Golem and told him that he will go save Vivi, so he needs to take care of the small ones that broke out of the dungeon. Rock used all the military vehicles in the area as materials for his transformation and became a giant war machine. It can easily kill all the monsters with its weapons and protects the Saintess and the others. After witnessing the power of Rock, the Saintess wondered if the immortal really lost his powers. On the other hand, Woojin made his way to the dungeon and finds it different from the other dungeons. Rashmod got excited to see that Woojin did come and is confident because there is no corpse to use now that the monsters were all sent outside. Woojin is still confident that he can beat him easily and asked to give back Vivi, but then Vivi was killed and her level has gone down by 1 and can only be summoned back after 32 days. Rashmod continued to provoke Woojin, who is currently enraged for what he did to Vivi. Rashmod summoned his sword and rushed forward with a slash, but Woojin blocked it, giving him the impression that he got a physical buff. The pipe turned into a sword, pushing Rashmod back. He is now seeing that Woojin is currently a warrior and not a necromancer he used to fight, and he is currently using the Rage of the Warrior skills that increases all his stats by 10. Woojin thrusts forward while switching to a spear and then changed to a hammer, smashing Rashmod in the chest that sends him flying back to the wall with great force. Woojin did not give him a chance to recover and quickly follows up with a deadly slash across his chest before his rage deactivates and walked away, knowing that he's already dead. But after a moment, Rashmod stood up, mocking him for leaving the Necromancer class and to just be a warrior. Rashmod effortlessly regenerates his body because of Chimera modification he did and summoned a large number of monsters to attack him. Outside, Rock is still clearing the monsters, and the Saintess has said that the mana on the golem will not last, and she's also worried on the condition of Woojin without his soldiers. Rashmod laughs at Woojin for being in a weakened state just by fighting his minions, and that this is the price for abandoning his power of dominance. He said he never abandoned it and proceeds in using all the corpse to summon his skeletons. He also stated that it just took him a while to recover his mana because it was all used up by his golem outside. While fighting, Woojin is actually getting experience points from all the monsters that is being killed by his golem outside, and after a while, he leveled up and all his stats have been recovered. He switches back to his hammer and pummeled his head to the ground, but Rashmod tries to heal his head, but Woojin caught up and switched his weapon to an axe and severed his head clean off. While his head is on the ground, he is still threatening Woojin that his glory won't last long because the link has already begun and that he needs to run if he wants to live. Woojin was amused and said that he has no plans to run before crushing his head. Brock is shown steaming and bruised, and Woojin apologized to him for the trouble. He also noticed that in the current event, the monsters did not die even if their summoner is already dead. He then released Rock and reminded him to take care of Vivi on the other side. Woojin started calling the Saintess Melody and asked as to why this happened, and she said that this current event is not because of a dungeon break, but rush mode was made because someone from Earth used the dimensional fragment without full knowledge of it. This place is called a summoner outpost. He now asked for the full cooperation of Melody to help him prevent Tronit's minion from entering Earth, and in exchange, he will help Alphen once he gets his own dimensional territory. Melody is shaking with excitement because the revelation was true about the immortal being the key to saving Alphen. After the rush mode, Woojin focused on leveling up on 6-star dungeons with the help of the Titan Guild and established a strong alliance. They discussed a defense and expedition to Alphen. A dilemma came up because of the risk and benefit of mining bloodstones. The world became divided into two between those who wants to continue to mine and to those that wants to stop it. In order to have a unified defense system, they came up with running the World Awakening organization. After a month, Woojin left and teased Melody a bit about being happy for she will no longer see him for a while, but the goddess has a different plan for her. The goddess asked her to follow Woojin and stay by his side. Melody didn't like, but she needed to follow the goddess. Minchin and Woojin are on their way back, but Woojin suddenly needs to go home and just appointed Minchin to be the guild's vice president to represent them on the dinner with the country's president. Instead of going home, he decided to visit Jimin since he has no money to pay the taxi. His sister decided to go see Woojin instead after learning that his brother is going to lend him money for the taxi fare. They met at a nearby cafe and Jiwon told him about her dream of becoming a writer and showed a novel that she created. After reading the novel, he figured that it was his story and it is fun to read. Jiwon thanked him for healing her wounds and Woojin further encouraged her of her strength and he just helped a bit. At their guild office, everything is running smoothly and suddenly Lieutenant Choi arrived greeting everyone. She also mentioned that she is just a military reserve now and can now work under Woojin. He immediately made a one-on-one interview with her and checked her class. It shows that Choi Hee-sol is a tamer class who has great loyalty and pride. He figured that she has a great potential and gave her a few enhancement stones that's worth a fortune. He said that she needs the boost in order for Woojin to help her grow. He also gave her the skill book of telepathy since she has a good understanding of the battlefield due to her experience in the military and added a few extra books for her to master. Then suddenly, Sungo came crashing through the door. He showed that currently, Minchin is having an agreement that will make their guild a national army and it is being televised. This news made Woojin furious but put that aside and asked Hee-sol and Sungu to follow him in the dungeon. Meanwhile, Minchin is on his way back to the office when Heeman called and asked him about the agreement on the news. Minchin was surprised because he was not aware of it and there are no agreements signed yet. Inside the 6-star dungeon at Gangnam Station Exit 9. Hee-sol is scared because this dungeon is way out of her capability as an F rank. Sungu handed her a dagger to help him carve the bloodstones from the monsters killed by Woojin. As they walk forward, Woojin caught up to them with his skeletons that's over 100 in numbers. Hee-sol now have a better understanding on how he clears dungeons fast. Next up is the other side of the 6-star dungeon portal. The transport made Hee-sol a bit sick, but she was told that she will get used to it. And they meet up with Woojin in front of a huge bone wall, and he prepared a plan or test for Hee-sol, and that is for her to try and tame a level 57 saber-tooth tiger enclosed inside his bone wall. Hee-sol looked at the beast and got scared that it might tear her to pieces if she gets close to it. Woojin informed her that she doesn't need to fight it, he asked her to tame it. Their plan was to actually beat the crap out of the beast in order to make it obedient and easier to tame. Sungu jumped inside the bone wall and smiled, but the beast instantly got aggressive and started to howl. That has a fear effect on it. Sungu provoked the beast, and it immediately lunged at him like it's going to eat him, but Sungo is no longer a weakling like he used to be. He used his skill the Iron Skin and followed it up with a barrage of iron fist blows and kicked it towards the bone wall, knocking it out. Hee-sol was surprised because he doesn't look strong because of his image. Sungu then called Hee-sol to come inside and tame it, but it did not work. After multiple failures, the beast woke up, but Sungu put it back to sleep. Hee-sol got discouraged because she feels like it will not work even if they keep on trying, and also because she no longer has any mana left, but suddenly, she felt her mana instantly recovered after Woojin helped her out. He then proceeds in telling her it is completely natural to not get it at first try because of the huge gap in level. So, he told her the 2 ways to tame. First is that need to have a sense of closeness with the beast or beat it and bring it to submission. Since the option to beat it up to submission did not work, Woojin thought of making it look like that Hisol will save the beast from the hands of Sungu and befriend it. They started to act it out by Sungu trying to attack Hisol, but Sungu was not able to control his strength well. He broke the arm of Hisol after she blocked his punch. Woojin reminded Hisol of their plan and proceeds into attacking Sungu. He took the punch of Hisol and pretended to fly back so hard that it even broke the bone wall behind him. His acting was so good and it even made Hisol think that she managed to make a powerful punch.
Oh my god, you saved me.
And it immediately liked her, and of course, Sungu won the Best Actor award. They spent more time inside the dungeon and shared a bonfire under the night sky. Then, Sungu questioned Woojin as to why he should only punch in a fight, wherein he is actually a flame magician, and finds strange to be doing that. Woojin explained that since he is the guild's second director, he will certainly be stronger someday, and before today, you won't be able to handle the advanced flame magic since it has high requirements, so it will just be difficult for him. But since you are now in A rank, you can now learn and become a flame magician, a man of fire. Sungu finally understood the reason for all his hardships, and starting today, he will no longer complain and will follow Woojin for the rest of his life. Back at the Ardal Guild, Minchin is thinking of a way to explain what happened to Woojin without going against his will. Then came Woojin, and it instantly made him sweat because of the pressure. He started to explain that it was all fake news. He thought that it was only a recording, and it was supposed to be aired only if a final decision was already made. He also mentioned that some conditions were good, but Woojin made him remember the main reason why he created the guild, and that is to avoid joining the military. Then asked Minchin to call the reporters because he has made a plan to get back to them. Now at the press conference, he started by saying that the broadcast was made without their knowledge, and nothing has been signed yet. They felt terrible about what the media, so he warned the media to not bring this topic back again. In the end, his only message is to tell the reporters that he will have to migrate, and left the room. After the conference, the media and the internet went crazy about the news. On the other hand, the Ardal Guild continued their preparation for the upcoming catastrophe. They decided to increase the scale of the guild and started to recruit awakeners. Applications came in like a storm, but most of them are only F ranks. They still saw it as good news, since Woojin can train and nurture them. Their guild will have the potential to overwhelm the three major guilds, and they felt motivated about the idea. Inside a dungeon, Woojin still continued to train and finally reached level 70, and can finally use the skill that made him able to command tens and thousands of men in the past, when he was still an Alphan. He started to unlock the Death Knight skill, and felt excited to feel all the 52 Death Knights in the summoning room. And he also recalled his new recruit, and it turns out that it is Al-Assad, but his anger is still kept in him, and immediately rushed towards Woojin after he got summoned. He was commanded to stop and was shocked because he can't even move his body. He was ordered to kneel before Woojin and his body just followed. He asked what did he do to him to make him yield to his words. Al-Assad offered to become Woojin's servant, and he will be spared. Al-Assad is still not aware of his current situation, and got threatened to be erased with his own knife pointed to his neck. He then realized what happened on their fight, and decided to comply and surrendered to Woojin's command. He became the 53rd Knight of the Immortal Kang Woojin, but still needs to be kept in check because he's still rebellious. Woojin tested him and asked him to come close, but Al-Assad ignored him. But Woojin let it pass this time, and ordered Al-Assad to go outside and get some recruits. After giving his command, he uttered the name Kiba, and a majestic orc came out. Kiba instantly grabbed Al-Assad's head and smashed it to the ground, and told him to bow down to the Lord, then proceeds in giving his respect to Woojin. The other knights, including Kiba, started to criticize Al-Assad for his skills, while the others mock him. Since the Death Knights are individual commanding creatures, he will now have an easier time hunting, and will now be able to expand his command, since the Death Knights can command the skeletons even when he is away. And just like that, his preparation as a one-man army is over, and suddenly, Vivi came out because the summoning room became too loud for her to handle. She is still pissed about her death and is looking forward to get her revenge on Rashmod. Then came Sungu rushing in with his blaze skill, and Woojin got impressed since he is already familiar with it, and even Vivi sensed his massive growth. Since this is his first time seeing Vivi in her original form, Woojin told him that they already met before, but she is in her cat form on Earth. Then came a flock of black crows that Sungu thought were enemies, but they were actually Hisol's newly tamed monsters. After a good progress in the dungeon, they are now on their way back to the office, and they talked about the quick progress of Hisol, but Woojin is thinking of a way to figure out who is behind the assassination attempt and destroy them. He then contacted the Titan Guild's leader, and was informed that Al-Assad is actually a well-known freelance mercenary, and is not working under anyone. This gave Woojin a better idea on who's behind this order to assassinate him. Meanwhile, Lee Sango, the leader of the Hwarang Guild, is watching the news and can't stand the fact that Woojin is gaining too much attention. He thought of how much money went down the drain when his assassination order failed, lost connection with a few powerful people, and the decline of his guild after the death of Li Yinyi. He blames everything to Wu Jin, and out of nowhere, he started hearing a voice asking if he wants revenge. Then a white demon-like image shows in front of him, offering his strength to help with his revenge, and was told that he needs to go where his sister died, then quickly vanishes. He first thought that it was just a hallucination or ghost, but as he looks around, he saw the sword of Yi on the floor. Out of options, he decided to take the opportunity to satisfy his need for revenge. Meanwhile, the Titan Guild's leader was visited by Melody and told him that she needs to leave the guild and follow Kang Wujin because it was the oracle of the goddess Arya. He's thinking that it will be a huge loss for the guild because her skills helped the guild a lot. He understands the situation but asked her a favor to still lead the Holy Knights. The Saintess was delighted to hear this idea, but his main reason is to actually keep the guild's connection to the priestess. Thirsty for revenge and power, Li Chango heads to where the demon asked him to go, but on his way to the dungeon, he was stopped by the security and without any hesitation, he killed them using his telekinesis. As he got inside the dungeon, the demon's voice invited him further by opening a portal in front of him. The other side shows an icy tundra and a towering ice castle, and he finds it odd to see that all the monsters in his path are not attacking him as he walks towards the castle, and made him wonder if the one that called him is the ruler of the dungeon. As he entered the castle, he was welcomed by the ruler of the land. He immediately shows his respects after he felt his enormous energy. Back at Wujin, he is now planning to go to Afghanistan, and as he entered his plane, he was surprised to see that Melody is inside waiting for him. Wujin and his summons do not like the presence of the Saintess and doubt if she can help a necromancer. She apologized and explained that it was the oracle's orders and it is absolute. This made Wujin accept her assistance, but warned him to watch her powers because it might trigger the Death Knights to charge in, so she better be careful. After 2 days in the Afghanistan military base, Wujin is currently discussing their plan to find any clue on who made the assassination order. He opened the idea that he can keep an eye on the enemies without even them noticing as long as they can lure the suspect on a visible land, and from there, he can find out everything about that person. 2 days later in Pakistan, he will be working with a US senior intelligence officer, and they went to have a meal in a restaurant where the target is. And in an instant, he already managed to let his shadow stalker to cling on the target. After their successful attempt, he went outside to observe the area. A group of unfortunate kids approached him looking like they are begging for some money or food. He gave the kids some money, and he suddenly noticed a little girl from afar and finds it interesting to see an ignorant child who seems so bright. A rare chance to see a child with such luminous personality who lives in a crazy world. He approached the kid and she also asked for money, and it seems like Wujin instantly liked the little girl. While he is getting some cash for the girl, he noticed that she is wearing something in her chest, and a big explosion instantly followed. With Wujin's spirit armor, he did not sustain any damage, but got mad for what happened to the little girl, and it turns out that there are 7 other explosions in the area, and there is a chance that there are another 7 innocent children that died. He felt so much rage for it is unforgivable to use an ignorant child as a sacrifice. He then decided to find every single terrorist and kill them all. About a week earlier, he made a discussion with the military, and he insists that he will take care of dealing with the terrorist alone. But the military tried to stop him because they can help him assassinate the command group instead of facing them head-on. The military introduced a guy named Roman Baker. He is the one who trades weapons illegally for someone who has connection with both government and rebel forces. He is the perfect target. Their plan is to include Wujin with the transport of Roman inside the enemy base, and they did get in smoothly. While he was tied up, he increased the level of Shadow Ghost Goblin to level 50. He can now summon up to 6 shadows, and it can now hide with the surroundings as well. He also gained the skill Soul Exchange and Shadow Movement that will allow him switch souls with a shadow and move freely for a short period of time. After gaining the skill, he switched with Goblin, even if it does not feel good when you switch bodies. He quickly moved and marked every terrorist in the area in order to not hurt any civilians in the area. After finding the leader and marking the enemies, he switched back to his original body, where it is currently lined up outside to be killed. He began his attack while saying that even God's punishment is too good for the likes of the terrorists. He then summoned all the vengeful spirits in the area who lost their lives unfairly and turned them into an army of skeletons. The terrorists went crazy and started running and thought that they are being attacked by the devils and managed to get back inside their camp. Then one of his Death Knights, Ramson, who's currently level 8, came out charging towards the gate of the terrorist gate and broke it down with the use of his mighty hammer. Wujin is just chilling on top of the wall while watching his army wipe all of the terrorists in the camp. After a while he looked for the remaining civilians to save them, but was blocked by the terrorist leader while pointing a gun to one of the hostages, who turns out to be the guy who trades weapons illegally. He saved the guy, but after a few words, he slits his throat to get revenge for all the people that was affected by his wrongdoings. At the same time, he noticed that there is a person behind him taking a video of him, and he is a war correspondent. He was one of the hostages and managed to escape during the chaos, and it gave Woojin an idea. He asked the correspondent to follow him around and record everything, because he is planning to let the world know that he is ending terrorism. It became viral and states that the rage of the South Korean awakener is sweeping the bad guys through the desert. The rebels group are now shaking in fear because they can't find a way to beat the skeletons, wiping them out. His summons has now increased to about 10,000 and now headed to a final battle with the rebels. He is now charging towards the enemies with all his summons, and they are roaring with rage. The tanks from the enemies are destroying large numbers of his skeletons, so he ordered Ramson to take care of it. Ramson charges towards the cannon fired by the tank and used his skill impact absorption, and as he gets close, he released the impact causing a large explosion. The rebel leader's trump guard arrived, and those are a couple of battle choppers that started to rain down missiles towards Woojin's army, but he intercepted them all using his skeleton mages. Before the choppers can return and reload, Woojin jumped up and pierced one pilot through the chest and tossed in rock to use the choppers as materials for his transformation, and this time it is equipped with all the weapons from the choppers. Rock started to shower the enemies with missiles, and in just like that the rebels are all wiped, demoralizing their leader. Woojin found the leader and remembered the poor little girl that exploded in front of him. He said to the leader that the god will not get angry, for he is just cleaning all the trash in this world, and killed him with a single slash separating his head from his body. This became headlines all over the world. The battle that even America could not end was ended not by a certain country, but by a single human. The Americans, natives and soldiers cheered on him because the prolonged war is finally over, and he instantly became a worldwide hero. However, the news also shows that there are countries that now fear him because he has a power that is a country's equal. In the Ardal Guild, the group is discussing the possible outcomes of Woojin's current victory when suddenly an alert came off stating that there is an urgent disaster that happened in Daegu Dungeon, and it is currently aired on the news. Military immediately assisted the residents in the area and helped them evacuate while they are waiting for the help from the nearby guilds. A lot of monsters already managed to roam around the area, and good thing that Baek made it in time to save a child from the large gorilla-like monster. The group discussed that as of now, they can handle the B-rank monsters, but feared that they don't know if this break is just the beginning and hope that this is just one simple incident. Current record shows the magnitude of the damage that resulted to multiple casualties and tons of property damage. This also made the people recall the trauma from the first dungeon break 5 years ago. 2 days after the break was cleared. The Ardal Guild members still can't contact Woojin, so Sungu decided to train himself in order to get a bit stronger. Then a mysterious-looking man passed, then suddenly Sing-eun got a call from Heeman, alerting them that a new dungeon break happened in a nearby station, which is a bad timing, because both Sungu and Heesol just went inside the dungeon to train, and will take a few hours before they go out. As they go out, they were shocked to see that the entire city currently engulfed in flames and everything already destroyed, without any idea of what happened while they were training. The city of Sadang is in chaos as high-level dungeons burst without warning, unleashing monsters onto the streets. Sungu and Heesol found a wounded awakener outside and was told that the Sadang station bursts. It is said that it started as a 6-star dungeon and burst without any sign. There are also 4-star and 5-star dungeons that bursts one after another. Sungu wonders why such high-level dungeons burst just like that, and he worries about his family in Sadang. In a hurry, Sungu immediately went to his family and left the area in the hands of Heesol. The citizens in the area are now in panic because they are being attacked by the monsters from the dungeons. Some of the Awakeners are doing their best to save as much people as they can, such as the Hammer Guild president Park Sang-oh. Then he noticed Young Minchin from afar assisting the people into a safer place, which is the bunker inside the Hammer Guild. Since Young Minchin is not an Awakener, was told to go inside to be safe, but then Park Sang-oh encountered a very large wolf on top of the building. It howled to call its minion, then suddenly Sungu dashed in with his flame step and punched the attacking wolf and summoned a wall of fire, then motivated the other Awakeners to fight with him. The Defense Security Command arrived with their military choppers and fired a missile to the face of the giant wolf, but it did not do any damage. It even gains more interest for what it is currently seeing. The giant leader of the wolf Zuriel is now preparing for its 3rd level of attack and used the earthlings as a sacrifice. From his giant horn, he shoots multiple lightning bolts to attack all the people below, and only Sungu managed to endure the attack, but he sustained a significant amount of damage. Zuriel was impressed but annoyed, so he shoots another lightning strike and puts Sungu down. The military tried to attack the area with a large missile and sacrifice the people just to stop the monsters, but suddenly the missile exploded in midair. It turned out that Woojin used the missile to quickly get into the zone. He immediately confronts Zuriel and asked if he is the one who caused the current mess in the city. Seeing the immortal in front of him made Zuriel wonder why would he be on Earth. Woojin asked Zuriel if he is the one who made the dungeons burst, but Zuriel has no idea of what he is saying. Since it looked like Zuriel is not the one who made the dungeon burst, Woojin proceeds in summoning his minions to defeat all the monsters in the area. Woojin then attacked by jumping towards Zuriel and tried to cut him using his sword, but it countered-attacked by using his lighting to be able to escape. He threatens Woojin to be always on his back because he will be coming back. Zuriel went inside the dungeon, but Woojin don't want to let him get away, so immediately followed him inside the dungeon. As he entered, he noticed something different in the dungeon because he received a notification stating that you are unable to choose between duel and a minion battle, as it has not yet been allocated. He was then asked if he wants to visit, infiltrate or conquer. Due to the current situation, Woojin selected the conquer mode and will gain achievement points if he succeeds with the mission. Woojin found Zuriel inside resting. He instantly regrets creating a gate on Earth because he was followed because it was opened. Woojin found this place great for hunting and wants to visit it more often. Zuriel laughed at him because he does not know that if this place is conquered, the gate will disappear and they will no longer have any contact again. However, it also applies if Woojin dies inside the dungeon. Then, Zuriel morphs into a werewolf while activating the unique effect of Dominion Field's protection that boosts all physical abilities increase by 300% for 30 seconds. Woojin said that you are still a crazy dog, even if you prepare something like this. Zuriel is confident that he will be resurrected even if he gets defeated here. He dashed forward trying to hit Woojin with his claws, but managed to dodge back. While dodging, he summoned Vivi in a cat form, then followed by his Death Knights. Knowing that his field of protection is running out, he knows that he will be at the disadvantage if he focused on the summons and not Woojin. So, he changed his target and managed to pierce through Woojin's chest before his buffs deactivates. Zuriel was proud to kill the immortal that even high-ranking lords couldn't do. Suddenly, Woojin disappeared from his claws and showed up behind him with Vivi laughing because she had fun watching Zuriel dancing by himself. He then recognized the cat to be the Witch of Hallucination, and as the curse breaks, he was already slashed by Woojin multiple times and threatens him to never set foot to Earth again once he resurrects. He proceeds in picking the third fragment of dimension, and all three resonated and a dimensional proof was created. The dungeon is now looking for a new owner and will react to it if found suitable. Woojin walked out the dungeon, but Sungu is waiting for him outside with bad news. Aside from Sadang Station, other dungeon breaks keep occurring, specifically following Line 4. Woojin instructs Sungu to deal with the surrounding areas, and he will further investigate. As he follows the train stations in Line 4, Woojin is leaving some of his summons to help the other Awakeners in suppressing the monsters coming out, and is still trying to figure out how to quickly find the source to prevent the dungeon breaks from spreading. He figured that there must be someone who's deliberately doing the breaks. He tried to anticipate it by heading straight to the next station after the most recent dungeon break. He heads down to Seoul Station knowing that there is a high chance that this will be the next target, but 30 minutes have already passed and nothing has happened yet. He's now thinking that the culprit already knows who he is and is currently hiding. Then suddenly, the KH and Joa's guild members greeted him. Among the crowd, he noticed someone suspicious and approached her. The lady stuttered and asked him why, but Woojin immediately punched her in the face. It turns out that the girl that he punched was Lee Sang-ho disguised, and he hits him again with his steel pipe to the stomach. He was surprised that Woojin already found out that he is the one causing the dungeon breaks. Back at the Ice Demon's castle, it is shown that he was bestowed with immense power and became one of his vassals. Lee Sang-ho denied that what he did was a crime and attacked him with flying swords using his telekinesis. But Woojin finds his power as a petty trick and easily blocked all attacks. He finds an opening and instantly dashed in and stabbed Lee Sang-ho in the chest. Wounded, he still thinks that the world is unfair because even after he received more power, he still can't win against Woojin. He also said that this will not stop because even if he dies, someone else will break the dungeons. Woojin also confronts him about sending an assassin to kill him when he was in the Middle East. He then took Sang-ho inside the dungeon and asked him how he break the dungeons. Sang-ho has no plans of telling him his ways, so Woojin resulted in using Vivi's powers. He was put into endless hallucination of being hunted by an army Woojin's clones and will beat him to death if caught. Vivi was also happy because she found her lost possession, which is the Phantom's cape, which is the one Sang-ho is wearing. He finally woke up and begs to spare him, for he will already tell them everything. But Woojin already found out the truth about him involving the people on Earth while he was under Vivi's curse. So, he killed him swiftly with his axe. But knowing that he already became a dimensional lord's vassal, he will surely revive and will no longer have any humanity left, so he won't be able to do the same tricks again. Woojin and Vivi head further in the dungeon and went inside the red portal, which is the dungeon of the flying dragons. They entered the dungeon's castle and found the return stone. As he touched the return stone, the recent dimensional proof that he gained reacted, and a notification shows that the current dungeon, the Wyvern's Nest, is at 72% synchronization rate, and ask him if he wants to proclaim it as his territory and possess the land based on its current rate. He recalls Melody's instruction and finds no reason to deny the possession of the territory, so he confirmed the notification. He named the dimensional territory Ardal and receives the manual containing all the information that he needs to know. He suddenly realized that the other lords were one step ahead of him because this turns out to be a game to gain more power and that Earth and Alpin were just hunting grounds to acquire energy. He now aims to turn everything upside down. Meanwhile, the news delivered good news to the citizens of Seoul, for all the dungeon break was already cleared out. They now return to their office and sees that everything was already looted, so Woojin asked Yoon Minchin to look for a building in Seoul that can be used as a fortress like the one used by the Hammer Guild. Woojin then got an emergency call from Juin, who's crying and asked for help because something bad happened to Jimin. He is currently at a hospital and they can't control him. As he arrives, Juin immediately hugged Woojin, crying and asking on what will happen to her brother. He calmed her down before entering Jimin's room. He looks at him and asked if he got bit. Jimin is looking sick and asked on what will happen to him because he was bit by a vampire on his shoulders. He told him straight that he will become a vampire. Jimin became worried as he will no longer see the sun, but Woojin told him that he can still see the sun since he will just turn into a blood-sucking henchman. Also, it is unfortunate because they can no longer reverse the effect once you are bitten. Jimin cried, but Woojin knows a way to escape his death and asked if he wants to live. Then the vampire who bit Jimin is shown, named Vampire Vaemert, the 7th step Great Lord Railer's vassal. As the sun is about to rise, Woojin and Jimin manage to track and catch him. Since the dawn is coming. He decided to run away, but Woojin grabbed one of his legs and slammed him to the ground. He tied him up and asked Jimin to pierce the vampire's heart using the dagger he gave him. Jimin hesitated but was told that if he will not do it, he will die along with the vampire since he is his henchman, but he can consume the vampire and live through. He decided to survive and killed the vampire, but then the blood suddenly floats and entered his mouth. With this, the blood succession was completed and Jimin became a level 15 vampire. At the same time, in the dimensional territory Ardal, one of his death knights who's patrolling, encountered the Tiger clan asking to speak to the lord of the territory. Because of the recent catastrophe, the rule about the dungeon breaking if not captured within 30 days fell apart. The world fell into despair following the news about the consecutive breaks in Seoul. And the people no longer trust the government even if they told them that they now have control over the dungeons. As a remedy, they kept on pressuring the Ardal Guild to sign a national defense treaty. Minchin went to the airport to fetch the Saintess Melody with the paladins. Meanwhile, Woojin is exploring his new territory and found a towering wall. Inside is the steward Vivi using up all the energy points just for making a castle and flowers. She also created a tavern, a blacksmith house and Jimin's own house. The Tiger clan was brought to Woojin and requested to reside in his territory because their previous leader Ort takes too much tax that the people could no longer bear it and left. Woojin then asked on how do they earn money. He replied that they hunt outside the gates. Overall, there are 4 ways to earn money or dimensional energy. First is by killing and consuming adventurers who enters the dungeon. Second is by unleashing the monsters outside the gate or through dungeon breaks. Third is by cultivating crops and raising livestock that contains bloodstones. Finally, through battling other sacred grounds which yields rewards but also enormous penalties. Woojin told the leader of the Tiger clan that he will not open the gates for the outside world as his home. The Tiger clan apologized and they were given the freedom to stay or leave the territory. Woojin immediately reviews the rules and is currently trying to devise a plan not only to protect his territory, but to also increase its dimensional energy. After 20 days in the dimensional territory, which is 5 days in real time, the base was prepared for the potential invasion that might happen since it is almost past 30 days. He went back to the new Ardal Guild's office in Seoul and discussed the upcoming assembly with the Saintess Melody, who has a list of all the involved people in the assassination attempt on Woojin. This was requested by Woojin, and he plans on taking them all out in the assembly. The National Assembly date has arrived and many known and powerful people have gathered. Sungun and Woojin are on their way, but suddenly, Woojin decided to change the destination. The citizens and the people who are in the assembly are now furious because of the delay, and it made them think that he is just doing this to increase his worth further. At the Blue House, the security alerted the president of Korea that Woojin have arrived, and they had a quick meeting. After an hour, he finally went to the National Assembly. The whole room went uproar when Woojin suddenly left after he memorized the faces of all the people involved in his assassination. He was ordered to sit down, and Woojin directly answered them that he will not be taking part in the National Defense Guild and warned everyone. He said that to those who were involved in the missile attack that was intended to kill him, those who intentionally caused a dungeon break for their own profit, and to those who we believe useless in the future battles, they will all pay for all their wrongdoings thus far. All of the relevant data was already leaked to the press, and they need to wait for the news tomorrow in order to know the reason why they must die. One of the involved people followed him but was immediately restrained by Woojin's shadow. Right after he got out, Sungun was relieved that he was able to hold himself back and that he did not spill any blood. Then Woojin started calling his minions and ordered them to kill anyone that he memorized from the list on site. Woojin said that his promise is only to not kill them inside the assembly, so he will kill them all once they get out of the building. Sungun was shocked for this turn of events. The people inside are taking a long time to come out, so Woojin thought of provoking them a little. Suddenly, a fire broke out inside the assembly room, and everyone was forced to evacuate. They were so relieved that they managed to get out, but what's waiting for them is even worse. Outside, one of Woojin's knights have already killed a couple of targets and immediately locked on the others that just got outside the building. Woojin arrives while the knight is grabbing one person by the neck. He started to ask why is he doing this, and Woojin told him that it is all about his connection to Lee Sang-ho, and that he found out that they are responsible for the intentional dungeon breaks to amass hundreds of billions from the reconstruction programs. He was also known as one of the people that contributed with the missile launch sent to kill Woojin. Even at his last moments, he still denied his wrongdoings and demanded to do things by the law, but Woojin declared that as of today, he is the law, and the knight crushed his neck for disrespecting his king. A bit of a flashback was shown about his conversation with the president. He presented the list of his targets and said that before he proceeds with his revenge, he has a suggestion and a warning for the president. The president of the nation was in a dilemma on how to handle the suggestion of Woojin, who was currently surrounded by the military team in front of the National Assembly building. Woojin had threatened to attack if the area was not cleared within 5 minutes. The president asked the military team about the number of casualties, and he was told that there were 57. After learning about the casualties, the president ordered the military team to clear the area, since Woojin had kept his promise. Meanwhile, at the Ardal Guild, Minchin and Heeman were going crazy over the news. They knew that this was no simple matter, as it was the most unprecedented rebellion and massacre in the nation's history. Sungu, on the other hand, somehow saw it as fair since the people killed were all bad people, and there were a lot of people supporting Woojin too. The Saintess Melody smiled slightly, saying that the immortal had become a king and was not someone who could be controlled by the country's rotten ruler. Suddenly, the news continued, saying that the president had announced the independence of the Ardal Guild in his press conference. The guild was now recognized as a state and had sovereignty. Furthermore, the president expressed his gratitude to the master of the Ardal Guild, Kang Woojin, as they could now reorganize the National Assembly. A flashback showed how the conversation between Woojin and the president went. Woojin had offered to clean up the corrupt men and make a country of his own. He was willing to form an alliance as long as they didn't bother the guild. The Saintess Melody continued to show her compassion to her king, but Minchin found it very dangerous. However, Woojin stopped him from talking, saying that this was not just for revenge, but to at least soothe the souls of their victims, and this was still cheap compared to the number of victims sacrificed. After stating his thoughts, Woojin then appointed Minchin as the prime minister to their future country, as someone needed to shoulder the work for him. Sungu will become the captain of the guards, and Sungun was in charge of foreign affairs. Meanwhile, in the dimensional sacred ground named Kamad's Swamp, their leader is planning to take over Woojin's territory, thinking that he is just a novice of the novices and will be an easy target for him. Now in the Ardal territory, Woojin welcomed Melody, and as always, she was impressed by his quick progress. However, she mentioned that the fortification of his sacred ground should be strong because his army alone won't be able to handle an attack from all sides once the protection is lifted. She also added that the dimensional battles have different method than others. She explained that it is somehow similar to the game of chess. The lords can't participate in the battle himself, and the battle will be carried out by only the resources in the sacred grounds. Woojin can't understand such conditions, so Melody suggested to have him do a mock battle. They commenced with the sacred grounds battle tutorial and got teleported to the playfield, but he is currently in the third person's view, like he is looking at a board with several pieces to control. Currently on the board, he has 5 pieces of the Tiger clan, and they are just waiting for a command. He also sees the number of resources and population in the area, just like a battle strategy simulation. He started to ask his units to collect blood plants, then he checked his current buildings he can construct and realized that he needs proper units and facilities in order to increase his chance of winning. For now, he decided to build an orc training camp to increase his workers up to the limit, but just like a rush attack in a game like Red Alert,
Fear of reporting.
a group of knights suddenly arrived in his base, and he quickly lost the match. He got really annoyed because it feels like his hands and feet are tied because he can't participate, so he asked Melody if all lords do this kind boring fights, and also asked information about the duel option. She said that this is a way for the lords to fight safely and diligently, and duels are between lords with 2 scenarios to consider. First, duels cannot go ahead if the opponent declines the invitation, and second, duels can only be forced if the loser wants revenge after the match. Woojin instantly liked it, since he can always take his territory back, even after losing to the sacred ground battle, as long as he wins the duel. Outside, he was approached by Vivi and asked about the Saintess, but Woojin gave her a book to learn fast, because they might need it right away. Vivi also informed him about the condition of Jimin. She said that he recovered his spirits after hunting monsters and having a meal. So, he decided to drop by Jimin's room. He said that he is slowly adapting to his powers now. Concerned, Woojin asked him if he wants to meet her sister. But he is still not comfortable seeing a lot of people yet and asked Woojin to tell her to wait a little more. Since her sister can't go inside the territory for she is not an awakener. Then, Jimin asked him if he is a god. He just answered that he is just a human and asked why is he asking. Jimin was relieved because the residents are anxious because they said that this sacred ground will not last since the current lord is not collecting any tax and that he is just a pushover. He told Jimin to don't worry about what they say because in time they will surely know who's the real pushover. So, he just needs focus on adjusting to his current condition and powers. The time has come when the Ardal's protection is lifted and he immediately received a battle request from Kamad. It shows that you can reject an invitation up to 4 times and from then on, the battle will be carried out forcefully. For the victor, you will receive 4 days of protection and in any case of loss, 12 days of protection will be applied. Woojin appointed Vivi to play the strategic battle and said that it is okay to lose, but Vivi is confident that she will win and even raised a bet that if she wins, Woojin will let her use 50% of the dimensional energy for the territory. The opponent was glad that his invitation was accepted right away without him knowing who he is currently dealing with. Inside the match, Woojin did not expect that Vivi would do well because she has already made good progress with her base. Finally, the enemy troll warriors appeared. After seeing them, Vivi immediately ordered her orc warriors to attack. However, her control is not as good as the opponent, so she ended up losing the sacred ground battle. Woojin did expect this to happen. He then watched the enemy loot his storage. Then suddenly, Vivi hugged Woojin while crying and said that she really wanted to win and she tried her best. He told her to not worry since he will be taking all of it back with revenge. He now proceeds in sending the loser's duel request. The enemy Kamad still finds it amusing that a newbie like Woojin would immediately ask for revenge after losing. Both are now teleported to the Plateau of Ice battleground, and the condition is that if you lose this duel, you will experience death and will be revived after 12 days. Before they start, Kamad proposed to wager 1 dungeon from each territory. Woojin agreed and wanted it to be wilder, since it is going to be a bloody battle. Kamad laughed out of excitement, and both of them agreed to add 100,000 points each. Without any moment wasted, Kamad immediately started his attack. Woojin responded with his own attack using his hammer, and Kamad was surprised to see that Earth has such powerful people like him. Kamad continued his attack, but Woojin managed to dodge and position himself into the side of Kamad. He attacked his knees and made him kneel. Woojin followed up with his bone wall and used his plateau split skill, defeating Kamad in an instant. With his successful revenge, he received the Nasia's Pillar dungeon. The newly owned dungeon is now being scouted by Woojin's skeletons, and the monsters that are currently guarding it sees them as an easy opponent. One of the clan's mighty warriors, Lyric, looked further into their dungeon and saw a lot of wyverns hovering above them. He shoots a lightning spear to one of the wyverns, but it did not do any damage. They were shocked and wonders if there is a magician riding the wyvern. It turned out that Woojin is the one riding the wyvern, and he moved closer to greet them to his territory. He stepped down and introduced himself as the boss of the area. He asked them if they are strong, but the warriors are still aggressive, so Woojin decided to further introduce himself by showing his powers. The leader of the warriors instantly recognized his power and ordered his men to fall back. They all ran back in fear of the Death Knights because they know that they are no match to them. One by one his men are dying in the hands of Woojin's Death Knights, and then Lyric decided to stay behind and let the others escape by delaying the Death Knights. He used all his mana into his skill Lightning Jail, and it managed to defeat some of Woojin's minions. Seeing his skill, Woojin approached him saying that he passed, and he got confused and surprised because one of Woojin's assassins suddenly appeared behind him and stabs him in the back, killing him. He then proceeds in sealing Lyric's soul and making him his 54th knight. After Woojin acquired the planet Zack, he started to get a lot of visitors. They were the planet Zack's dimensional lords with the agenda of friendship, since Woojin had dungeons there. The most frequent visitor is the octopus-looking guy Lord Dread, who's currently on his 3rd visit. He also offered friendship to Woojin and offered a present. The Paka's prayer, if displayed in the Lord's castle, the sacred ground's growth rate of bloodstones is increased, and blood plan generation will increase by 1%. Then suddenly, Dread asks if it is okay that he will be the one to receive something back from all of the previous gifts. Woojin suggested a meal, and Dread immediately accepted it. Due to his looks, Vivi finds him disgusting while eating. Then Woojin asked him what is his real reason for visiting. Dread asked Woojin if he is aware of the current forces in this planet. He is aware of them and named all. The indigenous people, Roddy Clan, Dimensional Lord Force, the Black Hat Union, the Red Hammer Union, and the Yellow Lizard Union. Dread was surprised because he already knows all of the forces. Woojin explained that he got it after turning one of the Roddy Clan leader into a Death Knight. The Great Lord Razakwi, one of the strongest from the Yellow Lizard Union, is the one that Dredd serves, and he invites Woojin to join them, but Woojin said that he alone is more than enough to protect his own dungeon. However, Dredd made him realize that he does need allies because he alone won't be able to protect multiple dungeons at the same time. His forces will be separated, and the Lord can only participate in one battle at a time. Dredd left and told Woojin to give his proposal some thought. This made Woojin think because he has never thought of such scenario yet, so for now, he will start to decline all visits and will greatly focus on leveling up. He immediately went back to Earth after the meeting and accepted all the highest difficulty dungeons that the world has already gave up on. This is to quickly gain high amounts of experience points and also to be able to summon even stronger minions. One of the people that gave support is his big bro Baek, for he let Woojin borrow his private jet. Then Baek noticed Sungu and asked if he is Mr. Flame, the one who's currently the hot topic on social media. Woojin thinks that it is a childish name, but Baek seems like a fan and asked Sungu to have a picture with him, while Woojin is asking Singun about their next destination. They have managed to get 12 dungeons requests and plan to start with the nearest area on the list, which is Japan. At the Osaka, Japan arrival area, they are having issues in finding the people that will pick them up because Singun's Japanese is bad. Woojin pulled out a medicine to help him gain knowledge about the Japanese language. After drinking it, Singun can now understand the people around them, and some of them are curious to know why Kang Woojin is in Japan. As they reach the Namba station, the vice president of Japan's Sensei Guild Takuchi, who is an A-grade water attribute magician, wants to brief them of a few things, but Woojin wants to skip the briefing because they have a lot of dungeons to clear. He plans to clear the dungeon with Sungu to make it quick and be able to move on to the next dungeon on their list. Takuchi finds him overly confident and thinks that his skills may be great, but there is always a limit in conquering dungeons. That is why it is always best to have a well-rounded team at all times. It also made him wonder how he plans to conquer all the high-level dungeons. Woojin guarantees to clear the dungeon cleanly, and Takuchi wants to accompany them in to gain knowledge for future bloodstone farming. At first, Woojin finds him as a nuisance, but with their contract of having a 7-to-3 mined bloodstone allocation between Ardal and Sensei Guild, he just thought of it as a benefit for their guild. Since there will be an audience from the Sensei Guild, he then thought of inviting Baek to join as well, and this made him excited because for the first time, he will see him in action. Takuchi was frightened to enter the dungeon first because he can't believe that they plan to conquer it with only a few people, plus they don't have the option to use a return stone because of the numerous failed attempts in the past. While he was trying to warn Woojin about the werewolves upon entry, he was surprised to see that all of them are already dead. Then, he was approached by Baek and told him that they were told to follow them after collecting the bloodstones. Baek recalled that everything happened in a blink of an eye. Because as they enter, both Woojin and Sungu immediately rushed in and wiped all the monsters, then went ahead. He was also surprised to see that Sungu is even stronger than an A grade now. Suddenly, Woojin and Sungu returned after clearing the basic monsters in just about 5 minutes, while Baek and Takuchi is not even done collecting the bloodstones yet. Next stop is the area beyond the red portal of the Namba station, and it is a volcano this time. The terrain shows trouble because they are spread apart with molten lava in between them. They can see the return stone, but it is said that you can't fly in this region because the volcano will explode once you get a certain distance away from it. Takuchi said that the alternative is to kill the lava flying fish in order for the island to connect to another island. Woojin thinks it through, and he thought of just simply summoning Rock and his phantom horse, with 2 more riders to take Baek and Takuchi. He noticed that the real reason for the explosion when you fly is because of the landmine mosquitoes that are hard to see with the naked eye. They will be using rock as a shield in order for mosquitoes to not go near them, since they can't get close to the lava. They now proceed in flying through the terrain. Takuchi was amazed on how he knows about the mosquitoes, and Woojin told him that he learned it from his teacher, which surprises everyone, even Sungu. Furthermore, Woojin shared that his magic is self-taught, and he learned a lot of more valuable things from his teacher, such as domination through overwhelming fear. He also mentioned that his teacher was from Alphen, but he was already dead to begin with, and that he is also a fire magician. He is sure that Sungu will learn a lot from him. In order to learn more about the dungeon, they used the orb called Memory of Harris. This orb can record both audio and video, even when you are inside a dungeon. They encountered the dungeon's boss, which is a giant minotaur, and was easily subdued by the Death Knights of Woojin. One tied it up with his chains, and the other 2 Death Knights deals the damage. And of course, the finishing blow was delivered by Woojin, with the use of his sword split skill slashing through the monster's neck. Outside, the president of the Sensei Guild Gato was baffled to witness the power of Woojin, who can easily clear a dungeon that even their best team can't beat after 3 attempts. As they study the video, Woojin already cleared another dungeon in Tokyo and is now headed to China. Currently, it only took his team 5 days to clear a total of 5 high-level dungeons, and they are now headed to their next destination, India. While on the plane, Baek was curious to ask about what Woojin thinks about all the immigration offers from Japan and China. Their offers are truly unprecedented and shocking because they also included the provision of territory and acknowledgement as an independent state of Ardal. Woojin quickly answered that he won't be going anywhere, not because he's patriotic, it is because Seoul Station is in Korea. He then explained everything about the dimensional territory to his team. None of them knew about this, and they were surprised that dungeons held such secrets. Furthermore, there is also a possibility that a high-ranking dungeon that's on the brink of breaking have a dimensional territory lord too. Sungu then asked if there is a way to just simply make a dungeon disappear before they even manage to link to it. Woojin said that even for him, it is impossible since each dungeon are protected by strong barriers. He will just wait until it becomes public and try to find a way someday. Now in India, they were welcomed by the top-ranking awakeners of the country, and Woojin hit the jackpot by finding Dread's dungeon. This is a dungeon on Earth that is currently located to a dimensional territory lord. One of the local awakeners, Blanca, offered his help to give Woojin all his blessings since he is an A-rank buff type, but Woojin immediately declined his help because blessings actually have a negative effect towards necromancers. Blanca insists to help, but Baek convinced him to just wait. While waiting, Blanca can't believe that even the president Baek was just told to wait. Baek told him they don't need any help from him as well. Suddenly, a red portal opened in front of them, which is a signal that all basic monsters are already cleared. Seeing how Blanca reacted made Baek notice that he has the same response as Japan and China after they witnessed their fast clear time. Beyond the red portal is a very beautiful seaside area that made Sungu very excited and ran towards the waters, but Blanca warned him to be careful, but Sungu easily dodged and catches the giant crab. He then thought of having it braised, but suddenly more giant crabs surrounded him, and Sungu easily grilled them all with his flames. The fragrant smell of grilled crabs made them hungry, so they set up a table to have a little feast. Blanca was surprised to see that they don't have any sense of danger, even if they are inside a high-ranked dungeon. After their small feast, Blanca told them that the return stone is located underwater, and there are thousands of jellyfish, making it extremely difficult to go through. Woojin finds it amazing that there are a lot of monsters in the sea. He started to summon his skeleton mages and used consecutive poison nova to immediately kill massive numbers of monsters in the sea. This easily killed all the weaker monsters in the water. He also mentioned that the Lord may no longer be able to hold back and will come out soon, while Baek and the others has no idea who is he referring to. And just like that, Woojin's prediction was right, and Dread finally appeared and told Woojin that he can't believe that he would fearlessly try to conquer his territory as an adventurer. He is now taking it as a declaration of war. He also thought that he would have gotten the upper hand by a mile if this was a duel or a territory battle. Enraged, Dread prepared himself for an attack to show his strength, but Woojin already anticipated Dread's arrival and already set up his trap. He purposely left all the poisoned and dead corpse floating because he plans on using them for his attack. As Dread prepares his attack, Woojin used the skill corpse explosion, and all the corpse in the area suddenly shined and exploded, blowing Dread into pieces, making Woojin level up to 76. This attack was so sudden that he didn't even told his party members about his plan to use corpse explosion and caused injury to Blanca. Woojin witnessed Blanca heal himself back to shape and finds his skill set very useful and invited him to join Ardal, but he was declined because Blanca has a very close bond with the Vishnu Guild Master. They now meet up with the Vishnu's Guildmaster Kashim, who's very grateful for clearing the dungeon. Woojin cut to the chase and proposed to hand over Blanca to Ardal. At first, Kashim declined it, but Woojin increased his offer to give 100% authority to manage the recently cleared dungeon. This instantly changed his mind and gave Blanca to join the Ardal Guild. Blanca became depressed for being sold by the person that he considers his brother, but Sungu comforts him and said that he used to be in the same position before and he just needs to be positive. Also, it is still better than joining his Death Knights. Meanwhile, Woojin's conquest echoed all over the world and he was even called Earth's last fortress. The dungeon closer, for he alone, closed all unclearable dungeons all over the world in just about 3 days. And also managed to form an alliance system with the US. After their quest, the media tried to catch Woojin in the airport, but he already made his way back to his dimensional territory. He checked for updates and found an interesting human named Leah, who currently has a large number of fights under her track record, which shows her strength in duels compared to territory battles. They initiated the territory battle with Leah and again, he appointed Vivi to play the strategy battle. Vivi managed to win and to Woojin's surprise, he asked if she learned to play with Jimin. She answered yes, and this time she gets to win the bet of 1,000 points. And as expected, Leah immediately requested a duel after the loss. Woojin is now teleported to the duel stage with Leah, and she is a bit surprised to see that she lost to a newbie human. She also started with a little chat offering friendship since they will be seeing each other, but Woojin said there is no point in being friendly if they are going to killing each other. Leah finds him cute and naive because he even waited her to load her gun. She shoots and her gun fired a thick black smoke that instantly covered Woojin. He noticed that this is no simple gun, it is an artifact with special abilities. Leah asked Woojin if he will give up now, since it is hopeless inside the smoke. There are no lights and you will be paralyzed because of the clouds. Woojin just laughed at her, then Leah started to shoot using a different gun. Every bullet was easily blocked by Woojin's metal pipe. She was impressed and started to challenge him by attacking him from all sides. A dozen is nothing compared to 1,000 of warriors that he has under his command. He then ordered his summons to catch Leah. At first, she was able to dodge and kill some of the minions, but due to the number disadvantage, she got caught and heavily wounded. Woojin stood before her telling her that those clouds have no effect towards an immortal enemy. At the very end, Leah is still aggressive and was eventually killed by Woojin with a big swing of his axe and told her that she is always welcome to fight again. He now has the option to plunder any of the two options. That's between storage and territory plunder. He selected storage and the items are chosen at random. A random pair of boots was shown and it is named Skia's boots. Description says that this is the boots that was worn by the god of adventure in Alphen. It gives 2% speed and plus 40 defense to the wearer. Woojin finds himself very lucky for this find because this boots was actually a material to create Thrash's march, the one that he was wearing back in Alphen. Thrash's 5-item set. Thrash's glory, Thrash's protection, Thrash's dignity, Thrash's punishment and Thrash's march. They are the strongest equipment that Woojin used back in Alphen. He imagined that if he will be able to complete the set again, it would greatly amplify his magic and domination power to the max. It would be like regaining his full power he had in Alphen. He then thought of making it easier for them if they can just simply win all territory battles in the future. So, he is thinking of asking Jimin to play the games for him. Back in the abyss, Leah is shown floating underwater while waiting for her resurrection after 12 days. She remembered Woojin and swears that she will have her revenge at all costs once she resurrects. Woojin went downtown inside his dimensional territory to look for Jimin. He found him sitting outside a cafe and thought of having the same drink as him. And it turns out that the cafe is serving all sorts of drinks and that he had was blood. He then asked if Jimin does play games, but he already stopped around 3rd year high school. Woojin asked if he wants to play all the territory battles instead. Jimin is not too confident of his skill, so he asked Woojin, why would he not ask a pro gamer instead? To Woojin, winning or losing does not matter. What's important to him is that he can trust the person he is working with. Jimin understands his reasons and was informed about the next territory battle, which will be held in 4 days. He was also given the chance to go see his sister. At that time, beyond the border of death, one wicked soul was trying to awaken once again. After his endless begging to be alive again, Lee Sang-ho was resurrected by his lord to give him another chance. He was told that because of his death, he can no longer incite any dungeon breaks. He was given a different task, and that is to bring a piece of crystal to the planet Zaku and find a dragon named Rajakui and tell him that if you destroy Earth, you will be allowed to enter planet Ypern. Once it is done, he was ordered to head to Earth and divide the people and turn them into his lord's vassals. He then received the Elo's ring. This ring contains the Lord Zelo's magic power. The wearer can also change to whatever appearance desired using polymorph magic. Increase magic power by 200% and magic restoration speed improved by 200%. Another chance was given. Another tragedy awaits. Within the territory of Ardal there is a giant apartment building for workers and families. This is where Juin is currently staying. While she was taking a shower, she thinks that it would be great if Woojin can attend their first-class reunion in 5 years. She tried to ask if he can drop by, but Woojin has no time for that. She completely understands Woojin because to Juin, he is the busiest person in the world. After she finished taking a bath, she was surprised to see that Jimin visited her and immediately hugged him with excitement. She cried and said that it does not matter if he turned into a vampire. He is still the same person and she will accept everything. But while she is hugging his brother, Jimin tried to stop her because he was actually with Woojin. Juin immediately ran back to her room out of embarrassment because she was only wearing a towel. Woojin asked Jimin why her sister suddenly rushed back into her room. Jimin is wondering if Woojin really has no idea or just pretending to not know the reason. Then Woojin said his farewell because he needs to get back to the dungeons to quickly level up and said that he has no time to rest. Jimin is in awe because he can't believe that at his current power, he is still not stopping and he still continues to grind. And it shows how dedicated he is in getting stronger every time. Seung-eun is waiting for him outside informing Woojin about his requested dungeon being prepared. They now arrived in Mokdong Station Exit 4. Woojin immediately heads towards the dungeon's entry and gave an instruction to his team that he will be inside all day. They can head back to the office and get something to eat. He now has entered the Mivich's meadow. Upon entry he received a notification asking him if he wants to duel, territory battle, visit, infiltrate or conquest. Before making his choice, he recalled previous encounters and remembered that if the dungeon is up to 6 stars, they are mostly owned by dungeon owners. But if the dungeon is containing a higher level of energy, it is always owned by a dimensional lord, and this dungeon is no different. He also noticed that the lords are trying to link with the entire world. It will only be a matter of time before one of them successfully connects. Conquering dungeons is one way to sever the link, but if they manage to connect to Earth, the damage would be astronomical, and the fact that he can't cover every dungeon at the same time gives Woojin a headache. After a while, he noticed that the dungeon has no monsters around, and a red portal immediately shows up in front of him. It made him think that it could be that the lord of this territory is telling him to not waste any time on small fries and head straight to him instead. After 6 hours of Earth time, Singun and his teammate is still waiting outside talking about Ardal being an independent state, but Singun said that the treaty is not signed yet. Then they realized that Woojin has not come out yet, wherein he usually clears a dungeon within 6 hours Earth time or 1 day dungeon time. Suddenly, they received a breaking news about the dungeons. It is said that simultaneous dungeon resets are happening as of the moment. Their current record shows that there are 11 dungeon resets in Seoul, 4 in Daegu and 7 in Busan. That's a total of 22 new dungeons are generated, and based on their energy assessment, 8 of them are expected to exceed 6 stars. Singun was surprised to see that this is not just in Korea, it is happening worldwide. They now worry because something big might happen, and they still have no idea on what to do since Woojin is still inside the dungeon. Meanwhile, a desperate-looking man is shown running, and it seems like he had a deal with the devil in order to save his sick daughter. This man stopped by a nearby subway's entry in Hongdae. This station is being guarded by several police and awakeners because of the recent situation. He ignored all of them and ran towards the dungeon's entry, causing a link to be made. The link was connected to the territory of the dimensional lord Charlotte from planet Zaku. She is affiliated with the Yellow Dragon Union and the faithful left-hand man of Golden Dragon Rajakui. She is now preparing an invasion towards Earth. On the other hand, at the Mito High School's 13th alumni reunion, Juin was asked if Woojin will be able to come because a lot of the people came thinking Woojin might attend. She knows that Woojin will definitely be happy if he gets to see his friends and reminisce about old times. Then suddenly, a man barged in the room telling them to take shelter because the monsters are already outside. This person was eventually caught by the spiders and got eaten. Then everything escalated because the dimensional lord appeared and see the place full of her prey. At the same time, Jimin is walking around thinking that he already got used to the dimensional territory, but still finds Earth better. Then he noticed a convoy of military tanks going past him, and he just received a notification about the ongoing dungeon breaks. He instantly recognizes one place on the list, which is the station near the location where her sister's reunion is being held, and she currently is in great danger because she is now standing in front of the dimensional Lord Charlotte. Outside, a swarm of bats covered the night sky, and the military is having a hard time protecting the people because of the lack of awakeners to support them with the evacuation. Then from afar, they saw a large monster clinging on top of the tall tower, and as they look closer, it is actually a giant yellow dragon staring back at them. Inside the Mivich's dimensional territory, a mysterious man wearing a black robe appeared in front of Woojin, and he asked if he is Mivich. The man said that it's been a long time since he saw the immortal. It is revealed that this man is the best swordsman on planet Alphan Mivich. Woojin does not remember him clearly because to him, he is just a familiar face. He then asked why an Alphan warrior is there and if he followed the saint. Mivich asked if he is referring to Saint Melody and asked if she is still alive. Woojin wondered why would she be dead, then he answered that yes, she is still alive, and she is currently helping him. Mivich laughed because of the fact that she is now helping the immortal, and that she truly is unfortunate. He can't believe that she betrayed the Union and is now helping the immortal to save Alphan. Woojin answered back and said, that should it be the other way around? You sided with Tronit and betrayed the Union in order to save yourself, since you don't share the same goal with the saint. Mivich can't believe that he was called a traitor because Woojin don't know anything. He added that Tronit is not someone to be opposed. He is a new order, an absolute law that even God can't stop. That's why to Mivich calling him a traitor is completely inaccurate. Woojin said that it is all nonsense. All of it will end the moment he destroys everything. Mivich said that Woojin is already under Tronit's law, and his actions will steer him towards eternal death. Woojin said that if he is afraid of death, then he wouldn't be in this battlefield alone. Then he dashed towards Mivich with his giant sword. Mivich was surprised to see the immortal wielding a sword and asked him when did he learn to use a sword. Woojin mocked him and said that learning it was just a piece of cake. Mivich pushed Woojin back, and as he was about to follow up an attack, one of Woojin's Death Knights appeared and blocked him and forced him to step back. He stated that it is a bit unfair to be fighting a 30 versus 1 battle. Meanwhile, Sungu witnessed an explosion and wonders if this is another dungeon break and asked about the situation around Ardal. He was told that Hisol is currently defending the area but has her hands full because it is going beyond her capabilities. Sungu said that Hisol is already used to handling A-grade monsters, so this means that things might really bad in her area now. Furthermore, the dragon spotted in Namsan caused a huge mess, and all the monsters around Seoul are now heading to Namsan. Sungu was shocked because Namsan is just behind Ardal, and he asked where is Woojin, and he was just told that he is still in the dungeon. At the same time, Singyun is standing by inside their car listening to the news. They have learned the movement of the monsters moving in unity. It looks like this is no longer a simple monster subjugation. This is already a war. He seems to have a plan and asked for something to write on. Then finally, Woojin came out of the dungeon and wonders why there is nobody around. He noticed a note posted on one of the glass shields at the exit of the station. It turns out that Sungun left this note so that Woojin will be immediately informed of the situation without them waiting for him to come out. The note says that there is an emergency and a total of 14 dungeon breaks occurred within Seoul. They are now moving to assemble. The locations are Namsan, Mokdong Baseball Stadium, Hongdae BB Hotel, Gangnam, Snu and Suwon Hwaseong Fortress. It is also noted that they have returned to Ardal for now and to contact them once he sees the message. Woojin said that even if he had 10 bodies, it won't be enough to handle the situation. He also said that Sungun is stupid to ask him to call them back because that is not possible if he didn't even leave his phone behind. Now Jimin is doing as fast as he can to go to the location of her sister. He is currently leaping on top of buildings in order to get there in time. Then suddenly, he heard the voice of Woojin calling him. Woojin said that it is possible now that Jimin is one of his vassals. He then asked the condition of everyone. Jimin said that all of Seoul is currently in chaos. The worst part is around Namsan and Ardal. He also mentioned that Sungu and Hisol are defending those areas. Woojin also asked about Jiwon because he is aware that she has a reunion today. Jimin said that he is worried because he can't contact her, and he is currently headed to the BB Hotel in Hongdae now. After hearing the location, he recognized that it was among the listed areas swarming with monsters now, according to Sungun's notes. The current condition inside the BB Hotel is dire because all the victims are now enveloped inside the spider's silk alive. One of them is Jiwon, who's currently struggling to breathe inside the silk. The Dimensional Lord Charlotte is currently excited to see this many Earthlings captured and said that she can even devour the Lord Rajakui and the entire planet itself. She is also a bit jealous that Lord Elo was the first one to lay hands on Earth. And now, she is preparing her colonization starting with the current victims she has. She began on opening one of the covered victim and devoured him. Jimin and Woojin finally got to the hotel and was surprised to see that the entire place had turned into a spider's den in just a few hours. Woojin figured that dealing with the spiderlings will be annoying since this monster can procreate quickly. He then called one of his new Death Knights, Lyric, to take care of the spiderlings along with his skeleton soldiers. He also called for Goblin to quickly find Jiwon for him. Demon Lord Charlotte is having a great time consuming the victims and feels like a special child could be born out of this. Unfortunately, Jiwon was the next one picked. Before she even lay her fangs on her, a sudden blast happened near them, stopping Charlotte from her feast. It turns out that Goblin managed to find Jiwon fast, and Woojin immediately came to save Jiwon. He then apologized for being late. She was not hurt, but was saddened to see that some of their friends did not survive. Woojin shares the same thought. They are also his friends that are waiting for his arrival without even knowing if he'd come. He started to blame himself because they could have gone home safely if he attended the reunion. Charlotte was delighted to see that Earth has such a warrior that makes the Dimensional Lords struggle to link to Earth. Angered, Woojin then asked for the name of the spider in front of him. Charlotte introduced herself as one of the Dimensional Lord of the Yellow Dragon Union. He replied that she is in the same union as that octopus Dread. He said to Charlotte that he will remember her name and that she will not be having a pretty death today. Charlotte felt ridiculed by what Woojin said to her and immediately ordered her spiderlings to attack and devour Woojin without leaving any piece of him behind. Woojin instructs Jimin behind him to just protect Jiwon while holding his hammer. He slams his hammer on the ground, killing multiple spiders at once. Charlotte became more enraged after seeing her children killed, but Woojin used it as an opportunity to charge and hit her with his hammer. This sent Charlotte crashing to the wall. Woojin followed it up by firing a few spikes, pinning her to the wall. She tried to speak, but Woojin did not allow her to continue and hit her with another spike to her chest and said that his anger will not subside if she dies too quickly. She needs to hold on a bit longer. Meanwhile, Sungu and Hisol is doing their best to defend the area that they are currently in. However, they are almost at their limit and they no longer know what to do next. He needs to recover inside the Ardal office in order to continue, but it will put the families inside in trouble. While he's distracted, a giant gargoyle charges towards him. Then suddenly someone blocked the attack and told him he did a great job in defending the place. They were actually Vivi, Saintess Melody and Golem that provided support to Hisol and Sungu. He slightly recovered his strength with the help of the Saintess. Vivi also mentioned that their master Woojin will arrive soon. He felt relieved after hearing it, and also, Woojin mentioned that he will be able to summon the Lich soon. The Saintess recognizes the name and said that the Epidemic King is finally making his appearance. Sungu asked who is the Epidemic King. The Saintess further introduced him to be the most notorious even among the Immortals' army. Epidemic King is the nickname of the Lich genus. 200 years ago, Lich genus killed a population of 30 million. That is why his mere appearance is called an epidemic. Sungu suddenly felt extreme fear because he recalled that the Lich is the person he needs to go to in order to learn more magic. He then asked the Saintess that since he is Wujin's teacher, he must be stronger than him. The Saintess replied by saying that it is impossible to surpass the immortal. This is because after he raised his immortal army, the number of creatures he killed is no less than 100 million in 20 years. Sungu then asked himself if he should continue to admire him after hearing the Saintess's story. Then finally, Wujin arrived and complimented them for enduring the fight while he was gone, and now aims to get the dragon's neck. Wujin will be taking advantage of the large number of monsters in the area to level up, since he is already at level 79, with 99.9% experience. While his summons is killing the monsters, he heads towards the dragon, but as he approaches, the dragon prepares to launch an attack. He worries not for himself, but for the people behind him. They will surely die if the dragon managed to attack. The dragon quickly released his attack, and Wujin jumped in to intercept the attack, but suddenly the beam disintegrated into dust, and the dragon was stunned because his attack did not do any damage at all. It turns out that Wujin made it in time to reach level 80 to summon the Lich genus. The Lich was amused to see a golden dragon in front of him, and even mentioned if Gungan needs a friend. Wujin told him that this dragon is no use to them, since it is Tronit's underling. Wujin gave the go signal to kill the dragon. The Epidemic King responded that killing this dragon is too easy for him. The dragon was identified to be the gold dragon Razakwi, head of Planet Zak's Yellow Lizard Association and Dimensional Lord. Razakwi wonders who is this entity in front of him, for he managed to block his breath. One who's been alive for almost an eternity. He said who is this one who cannot die even after death and asked for his identity. Genus declined his question and said that there is no need for questions and answers, he just needs to shut his disgusting mouth, for he is just a dirty dog of Tronit. Genus launched an attack to burn the dragon to an extent that even a speck of dust from his bone will no longer remain. Then a cluster of dark clouds surrounded him, and the dragon was too shocked to even dodge the attack. As the cloud disappears, Razakwi just laughed at the Lich, saying that it was a foolish and meaningless attack for his body has already reached the peak of magic tolerance. Genus laughed back at him for his ignorance because he thinks that it is just a regular fireworks. Suddenly, some of Razakwi's scales began to turn into dust and recognized that this magic is the flame that will not go out unless the target dies even in hell. Hellfire. However, Razakwi is still confident of the durability of his scales because hellfire will no longer go through it. Genus laughed and said that it seems like his attack lacks thermal power and he will now use an even more powerful attack. Razakwi flinched and somehow got scared. Genus started to summon the Hydra, a 7-headed dragon that suffers in the fires of hell, and told them to show Razakwi what hell really is. He also increased it to 100 Hydras and ordered them to simultaneously attack Razakwi with hellfire. The massive attack instantly killed Razakwi, and not a single trace of him remained. Wujin commended him and asked him how it feels like to be free again. Genus just said that he no longer has no interest in the time that already passed and asked if Wujin already found the Turish's execution. It seems like Wujin was continuously asked by Genus to find it because he said that he already tried to look for it but can't find it anywhere. Genus always insisted on the need to find the execution, a weapon from the Turish's set. However, it didn't exist in any achievement store, nor in the dimensional store, and not even a recipe could be found. They even wonder if this weapon actually exists. Wujin then ordered Genus to group up with the other Death Knights, and he will clean up the area. He will let his summons deal with the monsters in the other areas, and he will take care what Razakwi has left behind. However, he noticed a giant meteor that can wipe the entire soul off the map. He realized that only Genus can do something like this. Meanwhile, an overview of the city all messed up is shown, and 2 guys are currently recording what's happening in the area. Wujin found and asked if they are airing now. He is now being aired real-time and commanded every military forces in the area to leave the scene because the meteorite will make impact in about 15 minutes. It turns out that Wujin planned on making a heroic scene in order to cover up for the meteorite that was made by his own summon Genus. He then confronts Genus about this mess, putting him in a tight spot. Genus said that it is his first time visiting Earth. He just wants to deal with the monsters quickly. Wujin warned him to be well-mannered next time. To Genus that this small rock is just his way of conveying his greetings to Earth. Wujin further explained that humans will still die even from a shockwave from the giant meteor. He then asked Genus to get ready in blocking the meteor. Genus can't believe that he is going to use magic to save humans this time, but still he proceeds in following the order of his lord and created a white area barrier unfold. It was set in a way that it will contain the explosion inside the barrier and to only kill the monsters confined inside the area. 2 days after the incident, the news shows that repairs are already ongoing and some other countries had to resort to using nuclear weapon just to defeat the monsters. Korea is one of the areas that suffered minimal loss, and that is all thanks to Woojin. A question came up asking the citizens about a very important decision to make. That is to either recognize the independence of Ardal and be under their wing, or just watch as he leaves. In the Ardal Guild, the team is currently discussing all potential scenarios that might happen. The new member Lee Kang-jin said that if the majority go against their independence, they will have to leave South Korea. Vice President Minchin rejected this proposal because they know that Woojin will not agree to leave. In the end, they just have to pray that the voters will approve. Meanwhile, Woojin is currently on his way to the base as per request of the foreign countries. He recalled that the situation now is similar to Alphen. The Saintess shares the same memory because the monsters there are harder to deal with. By speculation, the base was used to allow a dimensional lord to use their powers. A dimensional lord would purchase a monster from the dimensional store and could let them loose using the base. Back in Alphen, Woojin only worries about the monsters that trespass his territory, but it is completely different now. He plans to deal with all the bases that have opened up in order to protect Earth. In Rome, Italy, the military are having a hard time dealing with the monsters that they have to use bombs in order to at least minimize their numbers and slow down their advancement. Woojin made in time to save a few soldiers that are retreating. He told the Saintess to stay and heal the injured, but he was warned that bombs were already set in the alleyway in front. He was informed that the bombs were set to go off in 59 seconds. Woojin ignored the warning and rushed forward because he doesn't want all the experience to be wasted from the explosion. He called forth Genus to kill all the monsters within 30 seconds. Genus is more than happy to destroy a town no matter what the reason is. Genus flew on top of the city and used his skill White Area Explosion. They moved on and head to the base in Rome's world-famous arena when suddenly someone jumped forward asking if he is the man who their Lord Rajakui ordered to be killed. Woojin gladly confirmed his identity to the dimensional Lord Nictor, a mighty giant under the Yellow Dragon Union from the planet Zaku. With too much confidence in himself, the giant said that he will carry out his Lord Rajakui's revenge and kill Woojin. Woojin just laughed at him and asked how is he going to do that. He even asked if he is stronger than his lord. Nictor follows his lord because his power cannot be compared to him. Following the said logic, Woojin asked if he will also follow him if Woojin kills his lord. Nictor got confused for a while, but managed to gather his thoughts and attacks Woojin. The Death Knights were summoned after Woojin dodged the giant's attack and easily killed him. Genus burned the bases and they found a dimensional fragment. This fragment must be the key to Tronit's merrymaking. Out of the 9 bases in Korea, they already managed to find 3 fragments. They now have a total of 5 fragments, including the one they have now and the one from Dread's dungeon. Woojin noticed that the drop rate has gotten pretty high. On the other hand, it seems like all the bases they find is located in crowded places or historical sites, but it would be problematic if the lords can hide while making a mess. Meanwhile, in the Jeju Manjin Caves entry, the district official suddenly visited the area, and the management is not aware of it. The official informed him to stop asking questions and just carefully send the tourists out because they will be starting a construction. The construction is being held inside the cave, and it turns out that it is Lee Chang-ho copied the official's face as a disguise in order to prepare for the summoning of his Lord Elo to Earth. Meanwhile, after the base in Rome, Woojin is now headed to London to fulfill the United Kingdom's request. The soldiers who are retired from the long battle appear to be greatly encouraged by the news of his participation in the London recapture operation. It is then shown that Dr. James Toppler heard the news of Woojin's arrival and said that he is the second candidate to save our world. Now in downtown London, Woojin cleared the area and found another dimensional fragment, who now have a total of 6 fragments in possession. He was commended by the president of Awakeners in United Kingdom named Tom Clarkson because he was relieved that he no longer has to worry about the area now. Then suddenly, Tom Clarkson asked Woojin if he can sell it to the United Kingdom. He was surprised to hear that they already knew about the dimensional fragments. Tom Clarkson said that the fragments is a gem that appears when you destroy structures made by the monster lords. The core of dungeons. He said that yes, it is not made public yet, and it was James Toppler that predicted this item to appear. Some countries like the United States, Japan, China and Germany are already conducting research on them. That's why United Kingdom wants a sample to conduct their own research as well. The name James Toppler sounded familiar to him, and as he remembers, he is the person on Earth who's closest to the dungeon's truth. He recalled seeing him on a broadcast sharing his hypothesis about the dungeon and their purpose. Later on, Woojin made a proposition about the dimensional fragments, and Tom Clarkson will discuss it with the parliament, and Woojin will be looking for their response. Then the Saintess Melody said that she can't believe that her lord will personally make a request to meet someone and wonders if the doctor is really that great. Woojin said that he is the only person on Earth who has discovered most of the dungeon's secrets, so it wouldn't hurt to make some time to meet him. Inside the mansion of Dr. James Toppler, the conversation starts with Dr. James speaking to them in Korean, and Woojin said that it was good. Then suddenly, the doctor asked the scientist to have a seat before the tea becomes cold. To their surprise, this was said in the Alphenian language. Woojin immediately asked him who he is while pointing a knife to his throat. He also asked how did he knew the language and if he is a dimensional lord. The doctor answered that he just learned the language and they can now speak in Korean, but Woojin noticed that this man is not afraid of dying and he has no soul. Necromancers have a unique ability in which they can see and feel almost all living creatures' souls. Until now, there had never been an existence without soul. Dr. Toppler laughed and said that they don't have to be cautious of him because their goals are aligned with his. He then revealed that he is also a human, but from another dimension. But still, Woojin asked why he can't feel any soul from him, and Dr. Toppler said that he can no longer say more than that, and he doesn't care if he kills him, then asked what did he came here for to ask. Woojin finally sat down and asked Dr. Toppler to get straight to the point and tell them everything. They both have the same goals, and that is to protect each of their planets. Woojin asked if he knows a way to protect Earth. He started by asking if Woojin knows about Tronit substance and what is its significance. Woojin vaguely knows about this information, so the doctor further explains that the core of it is the supernatural network among the planets that was created because of Tronit. Woojin followed up and asked if it is about dimension traveling. It is true that due to the unstable link, there were creatures who traveled across dimensions. A good example is when Woojin was accidentally transported to Alphen 5 years ago. Then Woojin asked if he is somehow monitoring him since the beginning, but the doctor said that he is not, he just simply heard about it from the news. From the beginning, the doctor is just waiting for someone who has the capability to save his home planet. He then explained the need to set up a firewall in order to block the link between the dimensional areas and the planets. The saint has figured that what he is referring to is a god because a planet's god acts like a firewall that obstructs the link. The Earth's god will soon be born, and they need to protect him from Tronit's powers. The saintess asked if it would be enough to stop Tronit by simply protecting the planet's god, because back in Alphen, their god can't do much, and what happened was beyond his capabilities. It is true that the god can't block every single virus, that's why there has to be someone to act as a strong vaccine. They will have to completely eliminate the virus that will pass through the firewall. He said that the Necromancer King Woojin already knows what he is talking about, and Woojin figured that it is the weapon that Genus has been searching for. The one with the power to eradicate all who go against it. The Thrash's execution. The doctor said that he may have no soul, but he has the eyes to see the truth, and Woojin is the only person he's seen closest to what he is looking for, and found hope in him. He then started to bid his farewell since that is all the information he can share for the time being, and was glad to be able to meet them. Woojin tried to stop him because he still has more matters to discuss, but right as he was about to touch the doctor, he just passed through him, and the doctor finally disappears in front of them. Woojin talked to Genus about the importance of the execution now. Furthermore, Genus said that the Thrash's execution is the ultimate weapon that only a necromancer can wield, but first, Woojin has to solve the puzzle before solving the riddle. They will now have to start by finding the other items in the set. So now, they will head back to the dungeons to try and find everything that Thrash's had left behind. Meanwhile, Ardal successfully formed a treaty with the South Korean government and became publicly independent as a new nation. In the car, Seung-yoon is teasing Minchin if he should now be called Prime Minister, and he is still not used to the current situation. They are also excited to tell all their achievements to Woojin once he returns from England. As they get to the gates of the new Ardal city-state, they saw a guy arguing with the guard because they are not allowing him to enter. He said that the president asked him to come to Ardal. Good thing that Seung-yoon recognized him, and it was Blanca called to get inside their car. Seung-yoon introduced Minchin to Blanca, and as they go inside the office, Woojin is already waiting for them. Woojin immediately teased Blanca by telling him that he kept on pushing back his trip to South Korea because of his previous boss. But Blanca said that it is just because he had some personal issues that he needs to settle first. He was then welcomed to Ardal, but Woojin noticed that both Minchin and Seung-yoon keeps on smiling. Minchin handed over a document about the confirmed treaty, but Woojin wanted to keep it short and just asked to give him the summary. Minchin said that South Korea already acknowledged their independence and also allowed citizens to be of dual nationality by amending the constitution. There is no need for people to give up their Korean citizenship, even if they become citizens of Ardal. Minchin said that everything is all thanks to their president Woojin. Then he asked if he should now call him king, but Woojin said that he should now be called Your Majesty. Minchin can't believe what Woojin said and got frozen. Woojin asked why is he sweating like that. Minchin said that it's nothing Your Majesty. But Woojin said that he is just joking, and that since they are now independent, they can call each other whatever they want to, so as long as they are comfortable with it. Minchin was relieved that it was just a joke, then Woojin asked him to call everyone because he has something important to say. Hisol and Sungu arrived and wonders what the meeting is about, and he was also greeted by Blanca. Woojin started the meeting by saying outer space invasion. He said that up until now, we were bent on trying to block the Dimensional Lord's links, and because of that, Earth has experienced a lot of damage. And that enemies will just continue to link to Earth, and if that goes on, the cities won't be standing anymore. If it will be a battleground, it would be best that it should be on their land. Furthermore, Woojin said that they can't just keep on blocking them here on Earth, so he decided to attack the enemies first. Sungu asked if that means that they will be going to Alphen, but Woojin said that Alphen will be their final destination, and it is not on their plans yet. He said that they will start in planet Zack. It's the planet where the Yellow Lizard Association that Rizakwi, the one who linked to Earth last time, is affiliated with. They will hunt them down and increase their forces. They are now in Seoul Station, and all preparations are now complete, but Woojin said that there is one more person that will join their team. It turns out that Woojin also invited his brother Baek to the team, and Sungu was surprised to see him. Baek was delighted that they are now in one team, and he was also impressed that Woojin is on a different level now for starting an outer space invasion. Woojin explained that he called Baek because their team don't have a tanker, meaning the person that will serve as their shield. They now have their radio and mob tamer, which is Hisol, a sub-tanker who can heal himself, which is Blanca, and a healer who can mend their lives, Melody. Woojin said that this definitely looks like a proper group now. Sungu noticed that he was not included in the team and asked why was he not included in this group. Woojin told him that he will be getting a special tutoring. Sungu asked if it is with Woojin's scary teacher. He tried to negotiate with Woojin, but he can't cancel it now because he already told Zenith about the training. Sungu figured that he can no longer get out of this and instantly got scared of what's going to happen to him. Woojin brought everyone to his territory and they were amazed to see the massive size of it. Baek said that he can't imagine that his brother is a dimensional lord. They were then approached by Vivi and Jimin. Vivi was happy to see that they have a lot of guests today. Woojin told her to show the guests around the sacred ground. Woojin introduced the other member of their expedition team. He decided to put Vampire Du Jimin as the last member of the team. As Vivi started the tour, Jimin was left with Woojin, and he said if it will be okay for him to join the party because he feels like he will just be a burden to them. Woojin assured him that he picked the best people from Earth to form this team. He said that it would be best to try and work with them. Woojin then asked if Jimin already learned all the skills that he needs to learn. Jimin said that he already learned all of them, but Woojin said that practice is entirely different from the real thing, and that the battle from this expedition will surely be a good experience for him to have. He also said that it would be great if he gets better and be able to protect his sister by himself now. After a while, Woojin opens a portal and asked everyone to be ready, and everyone is pumped up about it. He states that once they get past the dungeon, Sungu will start his training with Zenith, and the rest will attack planet Zack. Woojin instructed them that he will be doing a different task and reminded them to ask Jimin to contact him if there is something that needs his attention. They have now arrived the planet Zack and Nasia's pillar dungeon. Woojin started by breaking the barrier he set up in the area and ordered everyone to spread out right away and asked Sungu to come with him. And in that very moment, a group of lizard monsters emerges from the rocks. Their leader welcomed them, and Woojin asked who they are. The leader introduces himself as the Dimensional Lord Nigel, who serves Chen, the chief of the Black Hat Association. It turns out that the group is waiting for Woojin's arrival because they heard about Woojin annihilating the Yellow Lizard Association, and their leader Chen is very happy about it and wanted to meet Woojin. Nigel also mentioned that their leader Chen promised to give Woojin a very high position. Woojin did not let Nigel finish talking and immediately decapitated him with his axe. Nigel was surprised and asked what does this act mean. Woojin said that it only means that the invasion has begun. After a while, the entire group of lizards were killed by Woojin, and his big brother Baek was amazed because it seems like Woojin becomes stronger from the last time he's seen him. As Woojin and Sungu flies away to their destination, he wonders how much stronger can his brother Woojin get, for he only needs one blow to kill a dimensional lord. Then Hisol said that they should now start their expedition too. Baek asked her on how will they find a dungeon in a place like a boundless ocean, and on how will they know where the enemies are. Hisol smiled and raised her arm to call one of her birds and said that it will be their guide. Woojin and Sungu found a nearby base. Woojin said that he will take care of it alone and that he can now start his training with Zenith. After hearing it, Zenith said that the time has finally come. This made Sungu sweat in fear and forgot to get off the phantom horse. Woojin reminded him that he needs to go and kicked him off. Woojin smiled and said that from now on, all the time that Sungu breathes will already be considered as training and to try his best to survive the upcoming hellish training with Zenith. Sungu is now falling fast and worries on how he will land safely, but suddenly Zenith appeared beside him. Zenith said how dare he ask training from him with such arrogance. And in mid-air, Zenith decided to test Sungu to see whether he is qualified or not. Zenith blows up the sky with huge clouds of flames. Woojin can't stop but remember his first time meeting Zenith and hope that Sungu survives. He also said that if Sungu managed to come back from his training, he will greatly get stronger and will become an SS rank. Then Woojin turned to the base that they found and noticed that this is a base modeled on a robot city. He got a notification that he has entered the advanced fortress of Lord Leah. Woojin started off by summoning thousands of his skeletons, then marches on, but as they approached the base, they were shot by the defense cannons deployed in the base. Woojin said that it seems like Leah is not going to give up her base easily. Woojin summoned his golem and ordered it to charge and clear the way for them. Right after his golem got close enough, he ordered the rest of his summon to charge in, kill and destroy them all. This now includes his Death Knights. One of Larik's soldiers went in tears after seeing Larik's current state. He can't believe that the mighty warrior of the Roddy clan has become an underling of Woojin. He said that he is a predator that preys on the predators. He also thinks that the prophecy might really come to life. After a while, Woojin got a notification saying that he is attacking a base without an owner and given an option to either destroy or take over the base. He then recalled the Leah he killed before and realized that this means that she hasn't been revived yet. Vivi stepped in and asked Woojin if she can have this base, but Woojin told her that he has no intention of taking over another planet, so he decided to destroy the base instead. And as they watch the base collapse, Woojin wonders what kind of expression will Leah make after seeing her advanced base destroyed upon her revival. Then he thought Jimin's group and wonders if they are doing well. It seems like their group is not having any issues, and Baek said that there is still nothing much as of yet. He also states that if it continues to be this easy, Planet Zack will be smooth sailing soon. Then Hisol asked Jimin to quickly start feeding from the recent kill that they got. After feeding, Hisol told him that it seems like he is already getting used to controlling his powers. They now proceed by following the birds of Hisol as it starts pointing the way to them. After a while, they were ambushed by a group of giant beavers, and one of them leaped forward to attack Hisol. Hisol used her skill thought sharing. This allowed her to communicate with her team through her mind. She started by letting the whole team know that there are 3 monsters surrounding them. Then she told Baek to take care of one of the monsters while asking Blanca to give him a strong buff to enhance his power and then asked Jimin to deal with the remaining 2. As planned, Baek easily beats one monster with the help of Blanca's buff and Jimin killed one with his claws and bit the other one until it dies. Suddenly, a new group of monsters comes up and this time, it is a pack of wolves. Hisol told everyone that they are currently surrounded and commands Jimin to step back for now. But Jimin is not responding to her command. Then Jimin charges in alone and Hisol fears that he might have lost control of his power again. Hisol tried to stop Jimin, but he still proceeds in attacking the pack of wolves in front of them. Hisol figured that they have no other choice but to support Jimin from behind until he calms down. But suddenly, another group of monsters appeared behind them. Then Melody also noticed a group of flying monsters approaching them. Hisol said that they now have to get out of there and called in President Baek to get Jimin. He grabbed Jimin from the back, but Jimin keeps on struggling to get out and even tried to bite the arm of Baek in order to get out. Baek said that his skin is not soft enough to be bitten through by a newbie vampire. Then he drags him out and ran with the team as they tried to escape and find a safer place. Meanwhile, Sungu is still struggling to evade the explosions. Zenith laughed at him and asked him how long does he plans to run away and is he planning to just die without doing anything. Sungu is still confused on this kind of teaching because he was told that Zenith will teach him how to be the best fire magician, but it turns out that he is just crazy about trying to kill Sungu. Then suddenly, Sungu finally decided to fight. He picked up a twig, took a deep breath and enchanted with fire. Zenith laughed and said if he finally feels like trying to fight him and asked him to show him all his skills. Zenith shoots a barrage of fireballs towards and Sungu charges in and blocks every fireball that comes in his way. He finally reached Zenith, but as he was about to hit him with his flaming stick, Zenith just grabbed it and absorbed his flame. Zenith said that a flame magician doesn't block off a flaming bud, then breaks the stick of Sungu, then he followed it up with a single fireball that throws Sungu back to the ground. As Sungu gets back to his feet, Zenith laughs at him and asked if he is giving up already. But as Sungu looks up, Zenith had already prepared a giant fireball and asked Sungu to try and withstand this attack too. Sungu figured that he can't avoid this attack because he already reached his limit with his reinforced body. He realized that if there is no option to block or dodge it, he will just absorb it just like what Zenith did with his flame. Zenith got curious to see that Sungu is preparing to take on his attack. Sungu braces himself for the attack and said that if he can't do it, then he will die. Zenith was impressed to see that Sungu is holding himself well and managed to slowly absorb the flame until it is all gone. Sungu was ecstatic after successfully absorbing the attack, and he feels the overwhelming power flowing through his body and wonder if it is Zenith's magic. Zenith appeared delighted because Sungu finally learned the basics. Sungu thanks Zenith for the big lesson that he learned. He also said that the absorption of the flame sword was actually Zenith, showing an example first, and that he could have died if he failed. Then suddenly, Zenith shoots a fireball that passed through the side of Sungu's ears. That instantly changed Sungu's face from happy to a terrorized state, making him sweat peas. Then Zenith laughed at him because Sungu thought that it was the end of the training, but Zenith told him to say his thanks once all the training is complete. Then he proceeds in bombarding Sungu with multiple attacks again. Thanks for watching, and I really appreciate everyone's support. Please leave a like.